shocked to see it was an original painting. So it was only then that I started researching, and the different institutions have helped with the X-rays and all the rest of it. But then, is it actually Shakespeare? Well, all the facial comparisons, technology, everything like that, all matches with the Droschauer, which is the only known 2D image of Shakespeare. And who do you go to find that out?
There's a suggestion in the Sun's write-up of this story that you've been struggling to be heard in the academic world, the lofty art world. It's all a bit snooty. Yes. It's about who you know, and you're a tradesman.
Yes, yes. That is definitely true in some avenues, but then I have to say, and it's lovely to be able to have this opportunity to say it, there's other people in that world that have been fabulous. It's taken a long time to sort of get listened to. We want the discussion out there because all the evidence that we've got indicates that this really should be discussed.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Friday, the 30th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Dawn Neeson, and the lovely Nana Aquia, looking gorgeous this morning.
Right, you too, my dear. We're not, at least we're not matching in red coats, for goodness sake. Well, look, coming up, more flexible working. All staff will be granted the right to demand a 4-day week in a move championed by the Labour Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner.
And meanwhile, reunited in grief, Prince Harry makes a secret trip to the UK to attend his uncle's funeral alongside his brother Prince William. It was a reunion described as frosty.
And a picture of pettiness. I mean, honestly, Sir Keir Starmer has removed a portrait of Margaret Thatcher from Downing Street as he found it unsettling.
Nuts, mad and ridiculous. And no, that's not Keir Starmer. Just some of the words used to describe Sir Keir Starmer's outdoor smoking ban as backlash continues this morning.
Looks to me like subterfuge. Workplace health checks. Now, the NHS will go into offices, pubs and building sites to measure and weigh you. I mean, would you welcome that?
Nana, we've got the scales ready in the studio. Are you braced for your medical health check?
You see, this is the thing. I don't care. I don't mind, but it doesn't tell me anything. If I'm heavy or what will happen as a follow-up? I mean, they might say you're really fat, you've got high blood pressure, this, that and the other. Bye-bye.
Type 2 diabetes, go and see your GP in possibly 3 years' time when they have appointments for you. Is this going to work? That's what we want to know. And you can get involved really simply. Send your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get those news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. The headlines at 9:32. Well, parents in England are being warned today the expansion of government-funded support for childcare won't be plain sailing. From Monday, eligible working parents of those aged 9 months and over will get support for 15 hours a week. But the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, claims around 85,000 more places will still be needed next September to extend free support up to 30 hours a week. Well, as we heard, a row is brewing after reports have emerged that Sir Keir Starmer's removed a portrait of one of his predecessors from Downing Street. The Prime Minister is said to have taken down the image of Margaret Thatcher after he found it unsettling. Ministers have suggested today it's been moved somewhere else within Number 10. To recap on that breaking line we heard from Ellie earlier this morning, a murder investigation is now underway after a 13-year-old boy was stabbed in the West Midlands. The teenager was found at a property in Oldbury yesterday afternoon. He was treated by paramedics but sadly died at the scene. Detectives say it's tragic that a young life has been lost and there have been no arrests so far. Any more details on that we will, of course, bring to you. Well, tens of thousands of people in England will be able to get a free health check at work as part of a new NHS pilot scheme. Workers will provide information used to determine their risk of developing cardiovascular disease, which can cause heart attacks and stroke. Health experts think the checks will free up appointment times and cut waiting lists. In the US, Kamala Harris has defended changing her mind on some key policies since becoming Democratic presidential nominee. Speaking in her first major interview since announcing she was running for the White House, the vice president told CNN last night her values haven't changed. Well, it comes as a new poll suggests she has a 4-point lead over Donald Trump. And it's been reported that the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex both attended the funeral of their uncle earlier this week. According to the Sun newspaper, Harry flew from the US for the service of Lord Robert Fellows. One witness told the paper he and William kept their distance and didn't speak to each other. Those are the latest headlines for now. A full roundup from the newsroom at 10 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, and Nana Akua today.
Right, so let's kick it off. The Prime Minister is coming under fire after reports he's removed a portrait of one of his predecessors, Margaret Thatcher, from Downing Street.
He's said to have found the painting, commissioned by Gordon Brown, no less, unsettling.
Well, earlier, GB News spoke to Minister of State at the Department of Education, Baroness Jackie Smith, who served in Gordon Brown's cabinet, about the portrait's removal.
I don't think it's look. Keir Starmer can't win, can he? Because a few months ago he was being criticised for talking about Margaret Thatcher's legacy and the elements of her leadership that he respected, and now he's being criticised for asking for a few pictures to be moved around. I think what Keir Starmer was probably concentrating on, and just to be clear, there are portraits of Margaret Thatcher, as there are of all previous prime ministers, in number 10. And that, of course, is absolutely right. But what Keir Starmer needs to do, I think, is to focus on getting the country back on track in the way in which he is doing in some of the things that we've been talking about this morning and a lot of other ones.
Keith Smith talking earlier. Let's get the views of former Conservative Government Minister Edwina Currie. Edwina, welcome. Really good to talk to you. Good morning. Edwina, this particular picture, commissioned by Gordon Brown, £100,000 in the Thatcher room. Surely he could handle that. Is this not a bit petty from Sir Keir Starmer?
It's a lovely, precious row, isn't it? What an idiot he is. I mean, what it tells you about Keir Starmer is that he's very thin-skinned and that he's quite tetchy. If you watched his press conference that he gave in the Garden and Downing Street earlier this week, he took hardly any questions from the press and he sort of dismissed them with a sort of rather cross, peevish attitude. This is a man, it's going to be very easy indeed to irritate, and I think that's wonderful. I've got a couple of suggestions, if I may, for who he should replace on that wall. One is the last successful Labour Prime Minister, or at least the last one that got a huge majority. That's Tony Blair. Now, that would really irritate a lot of people in this government, would it? The other would be perhaps some of these people. His trade union friends. There's Mick Lynch, there's Dave Ward from the Post Office. I mean, if he wants heroes up there, or people that influence the way his thinking is going, or they're going to decide what happens to his government, the trade union leaders would be perfect.
Edwina, when's he going to realise that he's won the election? He is now not leading the opposition. He is actually Prime Minister of the whole country. No matter how we voted, he is our leader. Number 10 Downing Street is not a Labour head office. It is actually 10 Downing Street. It represents all of us. What gives him the actual right to do that?
Well, I suspect the problem is that Jackie Smith is wrong, and that Jackie is saying, oh, he's concentrating on, doing all the necessary things for government. I don't think he is. I think you're quite right that he's actually still whinging on about what the previous lot did. Whether they did it or whether they didn't do it is now irrelevant, because he's in charge, he's got a huge majority, and he is responsible. That's exactly what's going to be held up to him. But also, I suspect he hasn't a clue what to do. He actually hasn't a clue. He is. Oh, I hate to say this about our leaders, because I want our country to do well. But I'm beginning to think he's just plain useless.
Well, well, looking at it, I mean, look, he would argue that he won a massive majority, so people did vote for him, although it was only 20% of the voting public. But he would argue that he's in Downing Street now, he's in charge, and actually him removing the picture is one of the examples of him being in charge. That's probably what he would say, even though I don't particularly think that's much of a thing, but he would argue against that.
Well, I was actually a very junior member of Margaret Thatcher's government. And what Margaret would say was, your majority is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. Your objectives really should be the welfare of all the people in the country, starting with the pensioners, who you have just taken a great deal of money from, and ending with the trade unions, or at least putting the trade unions in their place. And they are not there to decide who is going to get what. They are there to just look after their workforce in whichever unions they may happen to be, whichever industries. What's happening is the other way around at the moment. The unions are dictating policy, and they have demanded and got a lot more money. Some of them, the RMT, are still on strike, and that pattern is going to continue. And that means that the rest of us are going to have to be paying a lot for the foolishness of getting a Labour government elected.
Can I just briefly ask you, do you think this is a distraction tactic? I mean, he's come out with the smoking thing, which no one was talking about. It was a problem that nobody was mentioning, and now he's coming out, or he's taken the picture down, which he must have known would get some headlines, but to detract from his winter fuel allowance, which most of us think is disgraceful, the VAT on schools, and all the other stuff that's coming our way.
He can't distract from what he's done to millions of pensioners in this country as we head towards the winter, as it was actually announced both the same week that these pay rises were given to his blackmailing friends in the unions, blackmailing us with all these strikes, and at the same time, of course, as the cost of heating our homes during this winter has just gone up, likely to go up again in October. He can't distract us from the awful way that he's already governing this nation after, what, 2 months? And we've got years of it yet.
Edwina, I mean, obviously, they're still in the honeymoon period. They've only just gone in there. We await to see how it all settles down. The dust is yet to settle. I just wanted to ask you, as a strong female political voice, I mean, Margaret Thatcher was the first female leader of a political party, the first female Prime Minister in the UK. How are Labour doing on that front? We haven't even heard from Angela Rayner for nearly a month now.
Oh, isn't it lovely? Well, yes. I mean, let's just remind ourselves that Labour have proved totally incapable over and over again of electing a woman into the highest office of the country, or indeed electing a person of colour. They talk about all this. You know, one of the key things about the Labour Party is that they're very good indeed at virtual signalling. You know, they wear their little ribbons on their lapels and that kind of thing. Actually getting anything done is a different matter. We in the Tory Party, and I'm president of High Peak. You see, I'm on holiday at the moment in glorious Anglesey. But we don't do that kind of virtue signalling. We don't have all women shortlists. We don't do that. We think that actually we should appoint people as far as possible on merit. Didn't work with Liz Truss, but heck, you know, you've got to learn as you go along. And as a result, we've had 3 women prime ministers. We might indeed have a 4th, depending on the leadership contest that's underway at the moment.
Angela Rayner, to be fair, is a strong woman and a strong voice. Do you think she's just waiting in the wings, biding her time?
I suspect she's been told by the press office to shut up because she's bad news. Have you seen what's been happening to their popularity ratings?
Oh, yeah.
Keir Starmer is already well below where he should be. Let me say this. You know, I have goodwill towards any government elected in this country after an election. That's how our system works. I want them to succeed for the welfare of all of us, and particularly for the most vulnerable in society, including pensioners, which I've now been one for a very long time, and people who are in need. You can't do that if you're forever looking after your pals in the trade unions. I think that's why Angela's been told, shut up and go away for the holiday.
Well, it does feel like they do appear to be trapped in a sort of backwind of trade unionism and everything else that's happened in the 70s, and they haven't come up to modern day. But we shall see. Edwina Curry, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is Edwina Curry, just coming up to 44 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Good morning, yes. Right, OK, coming up next, Prince Harry and William have reunited, but reportedly it wasn't the loving embrace many of us had hoped for. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll see you very soon.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Soya, almond, oats, hazelnut, coconut milk.
Yeah.
It's now much more difficult to choose.
Yeah, there's an awful lot out there on the market. So how do you feel about horse milk? Yes, you heard that right. For generations, people in Central Asia have sworn by horse milk and the supposed health benefits. And now researchers in Poland believe it should even be used in ice cream. For the sweet treat not only tastes delicious, apparently, but could also be good for your gut.
OK, well, joining us now to give us the lowdown on why we should be considering switching over to horse milk is farmer Frank Shellard from Cromwell Farm, Britain's only horse dairy. Good morning, Frank. Look, you're an expert on all things milk. You've even written a book on it. Is horse milk good for you? How does it compare nutritionally, first of all, to cow's milk?
I think the big difference is, just to make the point from the very start, cows, sheep and goats and all those other alternative milks have got 4 stomachs. Horse has got a single stomach, so a lot of the enzymes and a lot of the makeup of the milk is very similar to mother's milk. So our bodies are a lot more able, us being a single stomach animal, if you like, to digest that milk. So that's the big thing. That's the first point I'd like to make. Because of the makeup of the mare's milk, you could drink the lactose and the lactase in it. You could probably, not all, don't quote with everybody, but a big percentage of those people that are lactose intolerant could drink the mare's milk. The great thing about the mare's milk is it's very, very good for your gut flora. If you remember in the history books, Cleopatra bathed in ass's milk, and ass's milk is exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same makeup as mare's milk, and she bathed in it for eternal youth and to keep the skin and her metabolism correct.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's coming up to 47 minutes after 9 o'clock. This is Britain's newsroom on GB News.
Right, OK, a royal story for you. The Prince of Wales and Duke of Sussex have both attended the funeral of their uncle, but it wasn't the harmonious reunion many had hoped for.
But did we hope for a harmonious reunion? Really, I don't know whether I did as well. I mean, it's been reported that to have been a frosty between the two of them. I mean, you can't help that, can you? After he wrote that terrible memoir. Apparently they didn't talk. Well, joining us now is royal correspondent Michael Cole. Michael, nice to see you. Good morning. Now...
Good morning, Nana. Good morning, Dawn. This is a great story, you know. Is he Superman? Is he Super Prince? With one bound, he's from teeming Los Angeles to the sleepy North Norfolk village of Snettisham for the funeral of his uncle, Robert Fellows, the late husband of Princess Diana's older sister, Jane. How did he do it? How did he get here? How did he arrive completely unseen? Was it on a scheduled flight? I don't think so. Was it a private jet into nearby RAF Marham? Well, we must be told, because, you know, they're great defenders of climate change, great opponents of climate change and protecting the planet. But what is interesting is, for the first time in nearly a year, the two princes were in the same room together in the church, apparently sitting discreetly apart at the back of the church. There was no interaction. To say it was minimal, well, it wasn't minimal, it was invisible. Frosty, absolutely no warmth at all. And you couldn't call it, by any stretch of the imagination, a reunion.
Because I could imagine that William just feels absolutely betrayed by his brother. It's just terrible. But yeah, as you say, gas-guzzling, probably a gas-guzzling Bombardier jet, private jet, leaking 60 times more fuel than any other type of transport.
Michael, the paperback version of Spare is due out very soon, as we're aware, and I understand it hasn't been updated. Normally, paperbacks have that extra chapter of what's happened in between. Now, Harry hasn't done that, which has led some people to speculate that maybe he does want to thaw those relationships a bit with his dad and his brother.
Absolutely. I think this is another thorn in the side of the royal family. The fact that the paperback is coming out, but as you say, it's without new chapters, it hasn't been updated. So maybe that's some sort of peace offering, or perhaps he's feeling a little bit, I don't know, embarrassed by it. And it's a success because we mustn't forget it was the biggest selling autobiography ever, notwithstanding the fact that it wasn't written by him, it was written by a ghostwriter called J.R. Murringer. But it's hugely successful. And of course, that's one of the bones of contention that lies between them. It caused an awful lot of trouble. It was very unkind to, the present king and, of course, the Princess of Wales and his brother. All those tales from inside the household, which shouldn't normally have been kept well within there. And that is, of course, the nub of the angst that Prince William quite clearly has with his brother. It will be a very long time. At the moment, they were the same building, but they were a country mile apart. And for that to be bridged in any way whatsoever, there's going to have to be a lot of fence mending, enough fencing, in fact, to go around the whole 20,000 acres of the Sandringham estate. It's going to take a long time, and quite frankly, I can't see it happening. Maybe never.
Well, I was reading that Prince William is unlikely to be inviting Harry to his coronation when he is coronated king. And also that Meghan Markle, she's upset that things aren't sort of going her way, and the way her American Riviera orchard has been received, she's been quite upset by that.
Yeah, and Netflix are not going to renew their $100 million contract. It's all very, very sad. And you know what I feel, Dawn, and what I feel, Nana, is the fact that this couple could have made such a fantastic contribution to the Commonwealth. They were doing extremely well. They were well received by this whole people of this country. They could have had the backup of Buckingham Palace. They could have been doing things their own way. Because when you're a member of the royal family, you just simply are. When you're a semi-detached member of the royal family, you have to be doing things all the time. And of course, I think the fact that the prince came back yesterday, he must have felt some pangs. It was on Wednesday, of course, the funeral. He must have felt some pangs of the old life he lived, because he knows the Sandringham estate very well, had lots of friends up there, loved the shooting, loved everything about this country. And the fact is that he lives 5,000 miles away. And I'm sure that sometimes gives him a twinge of nostalgia.
I'm sure. Michael, just finally, Harry is due to go on a trip to New York next month at the same time as William is hosting a summit in the same city. Do you think there might be a twinge of hope that they at least talk to one another there?
Absolutely. This is extraordinary, isn't it? He's going there to promote various charities, including the Diana Trust and the Halo Trust and Africa Parks. But the fact that the two brothers can be in the same city, of course, at that time, it's the General Assembly week for the United Nations, the biggest talking shop in the world. So perhaps the New Yorkers, who have other things on their mind, won't notice that much. But, what a force they were when they were together. And I can't ever look at that picture. Look at Diana there. Those boys, they were so precious to her. She could not believe how this situation has resolved.
Michael, you just mentioned the Africa Parks charity. Is Prince Harry still attached to that after all the sort of scandal that surrounded it?
Well, I think he's staying loyal to it. Wow. It was said that by his own office that when he was there, those are one of the good causes that they promote. Listen, they do good things. We have to applaud that. nothing wrong with that at all. I would just wish that they could have done it within the royal family. They would have benefited. He would have been, I think, a happier man. And as it is now, you know, the king never sees his grandchildren.
Yeah, it's awful. In fact, Meghan Markle hasn't taken her grandchildren to meet the children to meet her dad either. In fact, she hasn't visited her dad, who is still very, very sick. I don't get it, but Michael Cole, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. That is the brilliant Michael Cole.
Oh, I do hope that, I mean, considering the uncle was our Diana's side of the family, it would have been nice for the family to witness the boys at least talking to one another.
Well, you're true, but still to come. How do you like the sound of the 3-day weekend? Well, if Angela Rayner gets her way, that's how it's going to be. But are they thinking straight? Will that work? This is Britain's Newsroom. Next up, Alex Burkle has your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Lots of fine and at times sunny weather around today, and it is going to feel relatively warm, but worth bearing in mind there are a few showers, particularly across the far north of Scotland. Some blustery winds here as well, and some of these could continue through the day. Otherwise, once any early mist and fog patches clear away, it's looking pretty fine with some bright or sunny spells for most of us, in which it should feel pretty warm. Temperatures ranging from highs in the mid to high teens towards the north, low to mid-20s towards the south. As we go through into this evening, there may still be 1 or 2 showers affecting parts of Orkney and Shetland perhaps, but otherwise across much of Scotland it is going to be a fine end to the day. Lots of late sunshine, particularly towards the west, perhaps a bit more cloud for eastern parts. A mixture of some late sunny spells and a bit of cloud for parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England, and a similar story across much of the rest of England and Wales as well. But do note that across parts of the southeast we are going to see the winds picking up a little bit later on. Through the night then it is going to be a dry picture for many of us, some clear skies, but in the far south perhaps a few showery bursts starting to push their way in as we head towards dawn tomorrow morning. Otherwise, and away from the far south with those brisk winds and a bit of cloud, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night, some places dipping into single figures. The showers across the far south will become a little bit more widespread across the southern counties as we go through tomorrow, and there's the risk of some thunder mixed in with these, but elsewhere across central northern parts staying fine, plenty of sunshine, and again feeling warm in the sunshine with temperatures ranging from the high teens to low to mid-20s. Looking ahead to Sunday, and there will again be some thundery showers around, most likely across eastern parts, but they could spread into more central areas for a time. Further west it is looking like it will stay mostly dry, but there is some rain in the far west which could arrive later. Temperatures likely to be a bit higher than tomorrow. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M18 in South Yorkshire is closed northbound southeast of Doncaster between junctions 3 and 4 from St Catherine's to Westmoor after an accident. Accused back along the A1M trying to join the M18. On the M6 in Warwickshire, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 3 from the M69 to the Coventry and Nuneaton turn with queues towards St Pass there. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, the inside lanes closed southbound after an accident between junctions 14 and 15 from the Thornbury and Fowfield turn to the M4 Almondsbury interchange causing queues. In Wiltshire, the A4361 is closed each way at Winterbourne Monkton after an accident. There are queues each way towards there and delays as you divert. And on the M25 in Surrey, the outside lanes closed anti-clockwise a mile before junction 10 for the A3 after an accident causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. And you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We are going to
the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life. If I was there, I'll buy you a drink.
Get your entry in now for another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash. Text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock, it's Friday the 30th of August. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Dawn Neeson and me, Nana Akua.
Now, more flexible working. All staff will be granted the right to demand a 4-day working week in a move championed by Labour Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner.
Reunited in grief, not. Prince Harry makes a secret trip to the UK, not so secret, we all know about it, to attend his uncle's funeral alongside his brother Prince William. It was a reunion described as frosty.
Indeed, and a picture of pettiness as Keir Starmer removed a portrait of Margaret Thatcher from Downing Street as he found it unsettling.
Nuts, mad, ridiculous. Just some of the words used to describe Sir Keir Starmer's outdoor smoking ban as backlash continues this morning. And then record jobless migrants. There are 1.6 million migrants living in Britain that are unemployed or not actively looking for work. In the meantime, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has announced refugees who arrive in Germany will be denied benefits if they do so from another country in the European Union. I like that. Well, as ever, we love to hear your thoughts, get your comments, send us them, gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Nana, thank you very much, and good morning to you. It's just after 10 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, ministers have admitted that government-funded childcare support for babies aged 9 months or over does come with significant challenges, they say. Eligible parents in England will be entitled to 15 hours of free childcare a week from next Monday. A plan inherited from the Conservatives, but the Department for Education claims around 85,000 more places will still be needed to be able to extend that free support to 30 hours a week from next September. Well, Baroness Jackie Smith told us this morning it will be an enormously difficult job to make it work.
We've been really knuckling down since we got into government, boosting up the recruitment campaign, for example, do something big which encourages people to come into the childcare workforce, making sure that we've got apprenticeships in place for people, developing the new T-level that in early years education that is actually very popular and successful and enabling more people to be trained. And it's why we'll be working between now and next year with early years providers, with local authorities, to make sure that those places, as far as we can do, are there for parents.
Sir Keir Starmer is coming under fire this morning after reports he's removed a portrait of one of his predecessors from Downing Street. Senior Conservatives are accusing the Prime Minister of being petty for taking down this image of Margaret Thatcher. He's said to have found the painting commissioned by Gordon Brown unsettling. A 13-year-old boy has died in what detectives are calling a tragic stabbing on the outskirts of Birmingham. A murder investigation's now been launched after the teenager was found at a property in Oldbury yesterday afternoon. He was treated by paramedics but sadly died at the scene from his injuries. The West Midlands Force say that at this stage there haven't been any arrests. Tens of thousands of people in England are set to be able to get a free heart health check at work. It's part of a new NHS pilot scheme. Workers will provide information used to determine their risk of developing cardiovascular disease, which can, of course, cause heart attacks or stroke. Health experts say that the checks will free up appointment times and hope it could cut waiting lists. A digital programme is also being developed through the NHS app. Just half of people receiving the new state pension got the full amount last year. New analysis shows around 150,000 people were on less than £100 a week. The full state pension should be £221 a week. Experts say one of the main reasons people are missing out is because they have gaps in their national insurance record. Turning to a piece of international news for you from Israel, the military there has agreed to a series of humanitarian pauses in Gaza to allow for the vaccination of children against polio. That's according to the World Health Organization. It's understood the campaign will aim to vaccinate around 640,000 children across the region and will begin on Sunday. Meanwhile, in the US, Kamala Harris has defended changing her mind on some policies since becoming the Democratic presidential nominee. Speaking in her first major interview with the media since announcing she was running for the White House, the vice president told CNN her values haven't changed. It comes as a new poll suggests she has a 4-point lead over Donald Trump.
We have set goals for the United States of America and, by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
Well, meanwhile, ABBA are demanding that Donald Trump's presidential campaign remove videos featuring some of the band's songs. The group has claimed hits, including The Winner Takes It All and Dancing Queen, were used at an event without their permission, but the Republicans' campaign team have insisted that they do have a licence to use those songs. And it's been reported that the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex both attended the funeral of their uncle earlier this week in Norfolk. According to the Sun newspaper, Prince Harry flew from the United States for that service for Lord Robert Fellows. One witness also told the newspaper that Prince Harry and Prince William kept their distance but didn't speak to each other at that service. One last story for you. The majority of workers on 0-hour contracts reportedly want regular hours. That's according to a new poll. The TUC found 84% want consistency, compared to just 14% who don't, with many saying they're financially struggling because of too few shifts. The survey also suggests 2/3 of those employed on 0-hours contracts are looking for extra work. And just a recap of that breaking news that we brought you earlier this morning, that a 13-year-old boy has died in what detectives are calling a tragic stabbing on the outskirts of Birmingham. West Midlands Force saying at this stage no arrests have been made. Any more details we will keep across that for you. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Dawn Neeson and Nana Akua. Now, loads of you have been getting in touch, so many. Keep them coming in, though. It's really simple. gbnews.com/your say. Lots of you are quite annoyed about Keir Starmer removing Margaret Thatcher's portrait from number 10 Downing Street. Stephen, good morning. Stephen says, what Starmer finds unsettling, those were the words that Keir Starmer evidently used, about the Thatcher portrait, is that she had ambition, fortitude, courage and belief. Ooh, harsh
Well,
words
listen,
there.
Andy says, Dawn and Nana, we all know Starmer has a woman problem, a strong woman problem. Thatcher was both. Well, I mean, we do recall that he couldn't define a woman and he kept talking about a woman having a penis
that's
or not.
pretty much having a big woman problem.
So he's obviously... Frederick said Edwina hit the nail on the head. Two-tier Keir is thin-skinned and the loony left will tear him apart. So nice on Edwina. Now go boil an egg.
Yeah, well, I mean...
that one. Edwina.
No.
She'll find that funny, then.
Yes,
Edwina's got a good sense of humour.
She's got a great sense of humour about that one. And meanwhile, Grumpy Grandad... Good morning, Grumpy Grandad. I'm talking to you again, but be careful. Says, Starmer is thin-skinned. You can tell he would be easy to wind up. He would bite hook, line and sinker. I would have a field day with him, given half the chance.
Well, Eileen is talking about health checks. She says giving people health checks at work is not so much nanny state as a communist China. Next, they'll be getting us to do Tai Chi in car parks. But then, what do you expect from a bunch of mocks, as she calls them?
Ooh.
But, yeah, well, I mean, I think we can say that. That's what she thinks. You're welcome to your opinion, Eileen. They would argue they're not. I think they're more socialist or communist.
But that's what this show is about, Hannah. This show is about everybody having their opinion, and please do keep them coming in. gbnews.com/ and we'll read as many out as we possibly can.
Right.
Even some of the slightly rude ones.
We will, as long as don't swear, because obviously we can't do that.
No, we'll censor them for you.
But listen, workers could be given the right to work a 4-day week under new government plans to increase flexible working.
Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who she at the moment is championing this as part of a new law in consultation with trade union and businesses.
Now, this new law will mean that employees still have to work full hours to receive full pay, but could compress their contracted hours in a shorter working week.
How's this going to work then? We're joined by director at the 4-Day Week campaign, Joe Ryle. Joe, thank you very much for joining us this morning. OK, 4-Day Week campaign says pretty much what it does on the tin, but what do you make of Labour's plans?
So we broadly welcome this as a move which we think, does recognise that the future of work is going to be a 4-day working week for all. However, as you were saying in the introduction, these proposals would only allow workers to compress their working hours. And now, when we've been working with hundreds of companies all over the UK who have successfully moved to a 4-day week, they've been reducing their working hours, and they found by reducing working hours, work-life balance and the well-being of workers has improved, and they've been able to maintain productivity. So we think this is an important move, an important first step. Sometimes moving to compressed hours can be the first step on the road to a kind of true 4-day week where we reduce our working hours. But broadly, we welcome this. I think this is a positive move.
Joe, currently, as far as I understand, employees have the legal right to request flexible working, but there's no obligation for companies to agree. Now, with what Labour are planning, that balance of power will be shifted, with companies instead being legally obliged to offer flexible working. And does that actually sound like it's going to work, though, across the vast array of businesses that it's going to be aimed at?
I mean, this isn't something that's going to come in overnight. Not everyone's going to get a 4-day week immediately overnight. But, broadly, that as it currently works, that flexible working legislation, the power is still too much in the hands of employers. And I think Labour are absolutely right to give more power to employees. We need to recognise that we've been working this kind of 9-to-5, 5-day working week for 100 years now. It's a model of work which is very outdated, and we would argue not fit for purpose in the modern era. And so we're really pleased that Labour have recognised that by saying, yes, in the short first step, people will be able to compress their hours into 4 days. But let's be honest, where this is headed is to a true 4-day working week for all, and that's working 32 hours a week. And the benefits speak for themselves. There's hundreds and hundreds of companies that have done this successfully. Their workers are better rested, they get a better work-life balance, and then they also pass that back onto their employer. They're able to work better, work more productively,
Can I just
more
stop you
efficiently.
there? Sorry. You said that it's not fit for purpose in this sort of modern-day era. I think a lot of people may disagree with that, in particular employees. It sounds to me like Angela Rayner, who I don't know whether she's run a business or not, but it doesn't sound like it from that. It sounds to me that this is great because she came up with this in conjunction with the unions. So this is great if you had been working working 9 to 5 and you've got a desk job and all. But what about doctors? A doctor suddenly going 10 hours into the operation, oh, it's flexible working, time for me to stop. And private companies as well, that won't fly for them either. So I don't understand why this has been almost pushed on the employers who have a lot to do with already. We need growth. How's that going to help?
Well, we're not going to get growth if workers are burnt out, stressed, overworked, working ridiculous hours. We work some of the longest full-time hours in the UK compared to the rest of Europe. Now, this isn't producing good results for the economy. It's not producing good results for workers. We know that because if you look at the facts, you
can't just say that.
From the longest hours, and we still have one of the lowest levels of productivity.
No, I've just got to stop you there because you're saying stuff that I don't know where you're getting your information. You're saying that basically it's not good for the economy. The economy's not doing well because of the working hours. Because I don't know where you've got that from. Because
we have the least.
Where have you got that from? They're not productive. Look at the civil.
I can tell you if you let me tell you.
Well, no, I was, but you were just saying stuff, and I'm just asking you, where have you got that from?
So you can read it in the Financial Times, any kind of newspaper. The UK has one of the least productive economies in Europe, and we also work some of the longest full-time hours. So that suggests that all these long working hours we're putting in aren't really doing anything good for anyone. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for workers. And I think, we think about automation, artificial intelligence, all these new technologies coming in, making the workplace more productive. And for workers to benefit from that, they need to be getting a shorter working week or a 4-day working week. And we're really pleased that this government recognises that is the future direction of travel. That is where we're heading.
What about the self-employed in all of this? There's an awful lot of people now in this country who are self-employed, running their own small businesses. They're not going to get this option. It does sound like, and many of those people who are self-employed, by the way, are sort of like, what we would call the old working class trades. So this is also, I think there's a class issue going on here as well. If you've got a lovely desk job where you can sort of clock off at 5 o'clock and take your Friday off, but many people will not be able to do this. It doesn't sound that fair.
When we ran the biggest 4-day week pilot to take place in the world so far in 2022, there were 61 companies. There were companies from all sorts of different sectors of the economy. We had manufacturing, retail, hospitality, finding those efficiencies, finding new and different ways of working. You've got to remember there's a lot of presenteeism in the British economy. And what Labour have said this morning is that they recognise that flexible working can really be a boost to productivity, and we've found that time and time again. It's not just in the UK. There's hundreds and hundreds of companies all over the world that have done this. Governments in Australia, New Zealand, Spain, launching their own trials. This is something which is shown through research to boost productivity. So, what's not to like about that? It's a win-win for both workers and employers.
It doesn't, but in research, it doesn't show that for the private sector. For the public sector, it probably shows that. For the private sector, it doesn't show that. And also, this has been trialled many times before. Hold on. No, let me finish now. This has been trialled many times before, and it's failed. And in a lot of these things, the first few months of this so-called 4-day working week, the people work really hard. And then towards the end of it, it starts to show that people aren't, it's not actually as effective. It isn't as effective, is it? And it's not realistic for most trades.
No, that's not true. We did a report 2 years after that pilot and found that actually productivity had been maintained, had been improved in many cases. So this can be a long-term option. Of course, there's a conversation around how is it going to work in different industries. We're not saying a 4-day week is going to come in overnight for everyone, but there's lots and lots of problems with the British workplace, and Labour are coming in trying to fix some of those problems. For example, we have millions of workers on 0 hours contracts. Now, how do they get a 4-day week or any benefit? They don't at the moment, and so we need to scrap 0 hours.
But you can't speak for everybody on 0 hours contracts. Some people rely on 0 hours contracts. In our industry, this is a lot of how it works. Why should the employer, if you want growth, forcing an employer to get rid of things like 0 hour contracts is not going to encourage growth, and actually it suits quite a few people.
You can have contracts that are flexible and allows workers to work, in different patterns and different periods. But they absolutely every worker should have workers' rights. If you ask any 0 hours contract worker, could they stay working on the same pattern but have the workers' rights that everyone else has? And they're going to say yes. But my point is that there's a long journey to a 4-day working week. It's been 100 years since we moved from a 6-day week to a 5-day week. Now, we recognise we're not going to have a 4-day week overnight for everyone. There's going to be a transition to get there, which we think will probably take something like a decade as the kind of economy starts to shift. But I believe we're at the beginning of that shift already, and hundreds and hundreds of companies have done it successfully in the private sector. We had the first local council, South Cambridge District Council.
Yeah.
Again,
And look how good
Again,
they are.
services have been maintained and the workers are a lot happier.
Joe, you're citing local councils. Lots of them are bankrupt and some of them are the most inefficient, have some of the most inefficient working practices you could ever come across. That's literally the worst example.
The council that's moved to a 4-day week are hitting all of their targets and a much improved way of working since moving to a 4-day week. So I would urge you to have a look at that and think about this as a serious proposal now. You know, the 4-day week is no longer a pipe dream. This is something which is realistic and on the cards in the near future.
Brilliant. That's Jo Roll. Thank you very much
Jo.
there. It's realistic, especially if you work for a union where you actually get a pay rise.
Well, she wrote that with the union, so that's, I mean, it's just, it's an old school thing.
But if you've got a view on that, and I'm sure you have, some of you are getting in touch already, gbnews.com/your say. Now, we have some breaking news this morning. West Midlands Police have launched a murder investigation after a 13-year-old boy has died after being stabbed in Oldbury yesterday.
Another 13-year-old was treated by paramedics. However, despite their best efforts, the boy sadly passed away. GB News West Midland reporter Jack Carson joins us now. Jack Carson, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, this murder investigation is very active here at the property in Oldbury in Sandwell. We've seen forensic teams from West Midlands Police enter and leave the property multiple times. Other officers we believe to be involved in some kind of search also entering the property. You can probably see behind me the officers that are guarding it so far. Now, West Midlands Police confirmed they were called here to this property on Lovett Avenue at 4 p.m. yesterday. As you mentioned, the 13-year-old in question was treated by paramedics. However, he did sadly pass away. Detective Superintendent Sean Edwards from the West Midlands Police homicide team confirmed that it was absolutely tragic in a statement to say that a young life had been lost. They say they've got special officers supporting the family and detectives working, he says, flat out to find out whoever is responsible to bring them into custody as soon as possible.
Jack Carson there with some breaking news about yet another tragedy involving knife crime in this country.
And teenagers as well.
11-year-old children.
It's just awful, isn't it?
OK, thank you very much, Jack. Now, the NHS will go into offices, pubs and building sites to measure you and weigh you. How do you feel about that? Workplace health checks. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Don't go too far. Nana and I are off to get weighed.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joined now by the founder of Quintet London, Tamta Masulishvili, who channels her experience and fervour for fashion into her innovative brands which produce artworks on silk. You brought in some lovely things which we'll discuss in just a moment. Tell me a little bit about the complexity of printing an artist's idea onto silk. Is that a difficult thing to do?
It's actually very simple because we just simply ask our clients a set of questions to find out what they like, their experiences, their favorite objects or anything they desire. We create out of this information preliminary sketch, show it to clients until it's perfect. We change it according to their needs.
Are you saying that everything that you're doing here is personalised to a client? It's a commission from a client?
Every single piece is totally unique. We make each individual piece for the client taste. So every single piece is totally different. And what is nice, for example, we do like wedding favors, corporate gifts, investors' gifts, and every single time we would match the theme throughout to the actual company theme and so on.
Now here we have a series of little silk ties. Am I right to call them ties?
This one's actually called twillies. Twilly.
Yes. I didn't know the word twilly. Yes. These have a name. So this is the name of your client in this case. This one is Amanda, I think.
Exactly. So actually these are our signature design. So if you want to gift someone something quickly, but just simply add their names, you can order from our website and you just simply need to insert their name and we can produce it on your favorite color combination. But then obviously our main product is totally unique pieces which are bespoke.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 23 minutes after 10 o'clock. I'm Nana Okoye. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Nana Okoye, and Dawn Neeson joining us, political commentator Ammon Bogle, and also former Labour MP Bill Rammell. Right, should we start with that first story? I want to talk to you, Ammon. I'm going to start with you on record numbers of migrants who are jobless. So which migrants are they? Are they the people likely to be on the Bibi Stockholm, or are these legal migrants?
Well, I think, look, the country has two-pronged migration problem, legal and illegal. And of course, a lot of this is to do with, look, we were supposed to be attracting the brightest and the best from around the world. That's partly why we got Brexit done. But what's needed right now, I would argue, is an emergency brake on all migration. Let's sort out the issues that we have presently with the present number of immigrants, with certainly this new news of 1.6 million legal migrants who are out of work and having to be supported by the taxpayer. And of course, one of the things which I am quite surprised about is the previous high in 2012, 12 years ago, of, well, 1.628 million. So it's only, gone up by around 50,000. I refuse to believe that. There is no way that there's only 50,000 more out-of-work legal migrants than there were 12 years ago.
Well, I don't know. Usually migrants tend to work quite hard, Bill Rammell, but it seems that some of them are coming here and just chilling out on the benefits. Well, it was done during the Tories era, so I'm not blaming a party.
My starting point is net migration at 685,000 is far too high and is unsustainable. And it's the job of this government to reduce the numbers. Part of this issue with people not working is their unprocessed asylum claims, because when your claim hasn't been processed, you're not able to work. That's why we need to dramatically...
But these are people who are legally here, so these are processed.
These are people on indefinite leave to remain.
OK, that's a factor. But I tell you what, an irony of this as well is before Brexit, the vast majority of migrants who came here were hard-working people who kept our businesses going. There's been a change since Brexit.
Were they more like the ones from the European Union? Is that what you're saying? But, well, I don't know. We've facilitated this, though. So wherever they're coming from, we've facilitated this. We've enabled people to come here and then languish on benefits.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge challenge.
What will the Labour Party do about that?
We're going to cut the numbers. 685,000. So, we need to be tackling the gangs. We need to be speeding up processing so that if you've got a right to stay here, you can. If not, you go back. But we also need to, as Yvette Cooper has commissioned, reviewing the list of eligible occupations that can recruit foreign workers.
What about giving them 3 months here if they come here legally to find work, and if they haven't, they should go back?
Because if they're refugees...
No. These are legal people who've come here legally as migrants, and they're just sitting... You can't... I'm saying give them 3 months' worth of benefits, but you're not entitled to any more. You haven't put anything in.
But then I don't understand their migrant status, because if you come here, you must come on a work visa if you're not an asylum seeker or a refugee.
A lot of these people are actually people on an indefinite leave to remain. So they've been here... look, let's be honest, it all started back in the day under New Labour, which was something called the holiday-making working permit. So you could come to the UK on a 2-year visa, pretending to be on holiday, but it was really to work. A lot of people continued to stay on from that over the years. A lot of people have come in through visa-free access into the country. A lot of people from Brazil, for example, are allowed to come into the UK with pretty much visa on arrival. And a lot of these are overstayers. So it's very easy nowadays to regularise your visa status into the UK. I mean, I've seen so many people, anecdotally, who've been here illegally, But as long as they've been here for 20 years, they've got a human rights claim to stay in the UK and become an indefinite leave to remain holder. And look at just 2 days ago, we had this situation with this gang being busted by the Home Office. Kudos to the Home Office, one first in a long time, of Nigerians being settled into the UK on EU settlement schemes with false documents. Thousands of people. So there's a lot of avenues of people coming in and then, well, not working.
Bill, let's just get one quick story in, still on the same subject. This is a Telegraph with Olaf Scholz in Germany is promising to speed up deportations and make life harder for migrants. This comes after the horrific stabbing we saw the other week at the festival. I mean, if we did what he's planning to do, which sounds very harsh, literally we're going to give them bread and water, we'd be called all the racist hellholes under the sun. How come the Germans can get away with that?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be in favour of bread and water. People need to survive. But
they get soap as well.
Yeah, but we want to dramatically increase deportations. And I was on this channel earlier in the week debating with Nigel Farage, and he acknowledged that under the last Labour government, we were deporting tens of thousands of people each year, which we don't today. And we need to get back to that.
Which is pretty much what you're saying. So, sorry, Raman.
Yeah, look, immigration in this country has become a Ponzi scheme. It's a never-ending open-door system where we need to keep on importing more and more people to support the people already here. And that's what needs to end. That's why the only solution, I think, is having an emergency brake. Stop it right now. Let's sort out the issues that we have. Let's get our own people. Let's not forget 9 million economically inactive people in the country already.
But what are we going to do with the people? I mean, because this is Olaf Scholz is doing this. They're giving them. It's not as an attractive proposition to now go to Germany if that's all you're going to get as a migrant. Do we need to be doing some measures that will make this country less attractive for people to come here?
Do you know what the biggest pull factor for the UK is? The fact that it can take years to process your asylum claim. So people come here, they know their claim's not going to be processed, and they disappear into the black economy.
Do you think it might be the percentage of acceptance which is the highest in Europe, where our percentage, I think, is 80-something%, we pretty much accept, whereas everywhere else is somewhere like 30-40%?
Well, that's only part of...
It's not 80%, but anyway, yeah.
Well, somewhere like that. I'm saying, my point is, what is it then exactly? But my point is it's the highest and very high.
It's high. It's about 60%.
I will check that figure
but those people are people who've got a right legally to remain here. What we've got to do is speed up the processing so that if you haven't got that right, you are removed.
Look, I think, anyone who's a genuine refugee, first of all, I think they ought to be helped in the source of their troubles. But that's not the big issue here. The big issue here is people coming in legally on visas, whether it be work permits, whether it be student visas and their dependents. I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, we've had a increase in student visa dependent visas from the 14,000 pre-pandemic to 150,000 student-dependent visas that have been issued. And a lot of them are then going on to convert those student visas, once their courses are over, into work permits, whether it be social care, and that's a whole another...
But you know what, Aman? If you look at the polling evidence, people don't see international students like other migrants. They know they bring something like 14 billion to the UK economy with the fees they pay and the money that they put into the local system. You know, tackling student visas, which are in our national interest, isn't the solution to this.
So the acceptance rate, so 33% will refuse initial decision, so it's about 67%?
That's it, OK, yeah.
Well, let's be honest. I think student visas, yes, they bring in a lot of money. That's a whole another issue of how we fund our universities. Let's be honest, a lot of them are going bust. And a lot of these students are not here to study genuine courses in really sort of high-profile universities. They're here simply to work and bring in their dependents.
The evidence doesn't back that up. 95% of international students go back to their country of origin at the end of their education.
Where are you seeing that? Where did you see that? Because that's not the stats that I have.
Those are the figures from Universities UK. I'm a former university vice-chancellor who recruited a significant number of
I will go and check those figures again.
I think it'll be worth finding out how many student visas are going on to be converted into work permits as soon as those 2 years are over.
Doing jobs that we need done in this country.
Yes.
You need highly qualified, mobile people who can help with our industries and our economy.
Oh, well, listen, Amal Bogle, Bill Rammell, thank you very much. They'll be back in an hour, but time to get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you, 10:32, and the top story from the newsroom this hour. West Midlands police have now started a murder investigation after a 13-year-old boy was stabbed to death near Birmingham. No one at this stage has been arrested over the attack, and detectives have said that it is absolutely tragic that a young life has been lost. More on that as we get it throughout this morning. The government says it won't impose a 4-day working week, but does support flexible working options. Labour says it's focused on compressed hours, allowing employees to work longer over fewer days, though not reducing total hours. The Conservatives have criticised the proposals, claiming businesses are concerned about potential costs. A row is brewing after reports emerged that Sir Keir Starmer has removed a portrait of one of his predecessors from Downing Street. The Prime Minister is said to have taken down the image of Margaret Thatcher after he found it unsettling. Tens of thousands of people in England will be able to get a free health check at work as part of a new NHS pilot scheme. Workers will provide information used to determine their risk of developing cardiovascular disease, which can cause heart attacks and stroke. Health experts think the checks will free up appointment times and cut waiting lists. Parents in England are being warned the expansion of government-funded support for childcare won't be plain sailing. From Monday, eligible working parents of those aged 9 months and over will get support for 15 hours free childcare a week. But the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has claimed around 85,000 more places will be needed next September to extend free support to 30 hours a week. In the US, Kamala Harris has defended changing her mind on some policies since becoming the presidential nominee for the Democrats. Speaking in her first major interview since announcing she was running for the White House, the vice president told CNN her values haven't changed. It comes as a new poll suggests she has a 4-point lead over Donald Trump. And it's been reported the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex both attended the funeral of their uncle in Norfolk this week. According to the Sun newspaper, Harry flew from the United States for the service for Lord Robert Fellows. One witness told the paper he and William kept their distance, though, and didn't speak to each other. Those are the latest headlines for now. A full roundup at 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now, up next, a poll by the TUC union shows that the majority of people on zero-hour contracts do not want to be on a zero-hour contract as they don't feel financially secure. Find out more about that soon. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll see you very soon.
Morning, here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Lots of fine and at times sunny weather around today, and it is going to feel relatively warm, but worth bearing in mind there are a few showers, particularly across the far north of Scotland. Some blustery winds here as well, and some of these could continue through the day. Otherwise, once any early mist and fog patches clear away, it's looking pretty fine with some bright or sunny spells for most of us, in which it should feel pretty warm. Temperatures ranging from highs in the mid to high teens towards the north, low to mid-20s towards the south. As we go through into this evening, there may still be 1 or 2 showers affecting parts of Orkney and Shetland perhaps, but otherwise across much of Scotland it is going to be a fine end to the day. Lots of late sunshine, particularly towards the west, perhaps a bit more cloud for eastern parts. A mixture of some late sunny spells and a bit of cloud for parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England, and a similar story across much of the rest of England and Wales as well. But do note that across parts of the southeast we are going to see the winds picking up a little bit later on. Through the night then it is going to be a dry picture for many of us, some clear skies, but in the far south perhaps a few showery bursts starting to push their way in as we head towards dawn tomorrow morning. Otherwise, and away from the far south with those brisk winds and a bit of cloud, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night, some places dipping into single figures. The showers across the far south will become a little bit more widespread across the southern counties as we go through tomorrow, and there's the risk of some thunder mixed in with these, but elsewhere across central northern parts staying fine. plenty of sunshine and again feeling warm in the sunshine with temperatures ranging from the high teens to low to mid-20s. Looking ahead to Sunday, and there will again be some thundery showers around, most likely across eastern parts, but they could spread into more central areas for a time. Further west, it is looking like it will stay mostly dry, but there is some rain in the far west, which could arrive later. Temperatures likely to be a bit higher than tomorrow. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M18 in South Yorkshire is closed northbound southeast of Doncaster between junctions 3 and 4 from St Catherine's to Westmore after an accident with queues back along the A1M towards the M18. The M6 in Warwickshire is down to 2 out of 4 lanes northbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 3 near Coventry, causing queues. In Cambridgeshire, the A428 is partly blocked near to the car wash at Croxton, queues for around 2 miles towards there. On the M11 in Essex, there's a lane closed northbound a mile after the M25, causing delays. On the M25 in Surrey, the outside lane's closed anti-clockwise. There's an accident a mile before junction 10 for the A3, with queues throughout a mile towards there. And in Wiltshire, the A4361 is closed in both directions at Winterbourne Monkton after an accident causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good morning, it's 10:38. This is Britain's Newsroom with Nana Akwe and Dawn Neeson.
Indeed. Now, let's see what you've been saying on gbnews.com/your say. Lots of you have been getting in touch. Not very complimentary about Keir Starmer, it has to be said, or about the chap who was promoting the 4-day working week.
I love it. Well, let's read this one. This one I've slightly moderated for you, JD, because I think I have to. He basically says, this bloke wants people to get paid for doing pretty much nothing. There's enough of that going on already in the public sector and the civil service. It's true, isn't it?
Ouch. Yeah, a bit harsh. Meanwhile, Drew, good morning, Drew, says, wow, on the 4-day working week. I think your tongue might be firmly in your cheek here, Drew, says, wow, imagine how much more productive we'd be working just 1 day a week then. If 4 days makes you productive from 5, nothing like being looked at and patronised by just out of education. I won't read the all out. Yeah.
What about this one from Michael? Michael Kai says, 4-day week is a Skyver's charter. I worked 52 years in the printing industry and often did 24-hour shifts in a few 36 hours, and I was never burnt out. Well, that's it, isn't it? It's not realistic. And then to put the power in the hands of the employee, it does not incentivise an employer to give an employee a job.
Yeah. And meanwhile, David says, I cannot believe that Angela Rayner is in a position of Deputy Prime Minister and is suggesting a 4-day working week. She spent years as a social worker, then worked for a trade union. She hasn't a clue about the economy or growth. And that's the point, Nana. They promised us growth. We're all about growth. We're all about change.
Have you got shorter?
You're
singing on your chair.
I've got the chair.
I suddenly thought...
we have a thing in the studio, right, where there's one
thinking chair.
It's called the thinking chair. And it's my turn.
It's all of them, isn't it?
It's my turn today.
Well, I like this one from Lynn. Lynn says it's absolute rubbish to say that reducing working hours means better productivity. Many companies have trialled this and it does not work. I'm with Lynn. It doesn't work.
Actually, seeing as I've got the sinking chair, I'm actually going to work a 4-day week, and by now I'm off now. I've finished my shift. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It's just say if you were in... look, and the other thing, how they're going to legislate this, right? It's going to have to be fluid for various businesses.
Well, they're saying that they won't force people to do it, but then I ask myself, what is the point of issuing a statement that you're going to allow employees to ask that? I could ask that anyway. Anyone could ask that. So I don't really get the point of it. The
devil is going to be in the detail, and as always, the detail hasn't actually been explained, and this is meant to be coming in potentially in the autumn.
Well, this is from Benny. Benny, this is something that Bill Ramon earlier. Benny says, Bill says we are going to stop the gangs. America's been trying to stop drug smugglers for decades and failed. When you take one gang down, you open the door for another to take their place. It's like the head of a snake, isn't it? Medusa's snake, cut the head off, and more of them are there.
To be fair, Labour have managed to arrest 75 people working in car washes. And it took them a week, and how many millions?
Well, also, it's a bit silly, really, because you might arrest them, but that's not really smashing the gangs, is it? That's the people working in the black market.
It's smashing your local car.
But let's move on. If you just joined us, welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom. On to Sir Keir Starmer. He's been warning against watering down a ban on exploitative zero-hour contracts after fresh evidence shows that the extreme financial burden on millions in insecure work.
Right. A survey of almost 2,500 zero-hour contract workers found that more than 4 in 5 are in favour of switching to regular jobs. We're joined now by Head of Policy and Public Affairs at the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, Ruth Wilkinson. Ruth, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Tell us a little bit more about this survey. What are you reading into it?
Well, yeah, nice to see you both, Dawn and Nana. Thanks for having us on today. Obviously, we've seen the stats from the TUC where it said 84% want regular hours. Now, we have been looking into this type of precarious work through gig work, zero-hour contracts, and we do see that there is an impact on people's job security through not having these regular hours, through unpredictable income, which can impact the health and the safety and well-being of workers, which of course can in turn impact their productivity and their morale in the workplace. Now, we're really interested in ensuring the health, the safety and the well-being of workers so that they can contribute and help rebuild the economy. So we're really focused on how can we support workers, to work, stay in work, and to be productive when they're at work. And we can see that there are impacts through having zero-hour contracts. On one hand, they do give you that flexibility. Apologies, Anna, but on the other, then you do have, well, when are you going to be working? How many of these zero-hour contracts are you working? What's the total number of hours you're doing? Are you getting sufficient rest breaks? And we did a survey a couple of years ago which showed occupational safety and health protections were impacted as a result of these contracts. So they weren't getting the training, the induction. So we can just see that there does need to be a remedy to this.
Can I just ask, OK, so a couple of questions. Where was the survey done? Because the TUC, Trade Union Congress, who are the ones who have been helping Angela Rayner with all her sort of work initiatives, first of all, where did they poll these people? Because if you ask that question in, say, London, you'll probably get a very different answer to if you ask the question in Hull. And then what about the employers, sorry? Have you done any surveys with the employers to see whether this is actually a realistic thing? Because many, I'm sure, would tell you that if they did it another way, that would be the end of their business.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the TUC survey, Nana, so I don't have all the answers to how they did undertake that survey. We did undertake one ourselves with gig workers within the UK across 1,000 platform workers who work in the gig economy, and 58% of those said that it does result in unpredictable income, and 54% said that they do have low level of job insecurity. And when we went to our members, in our IOSH members, 85% of those believed that legislation should be improved to make sure that unstable working hours and insecurity in the gig economy and zero-hour workers is remedied. So what stats we're getting through our surveys is that of all stacking up to say there is something that needs to be done here. How can we prevent...
Can I just stop you there? The question that you asked in your survey, though, you've asked them about unpredictable income. Well, that's obvious. Like, if somebody says to you, if you work 0 hours, is your income predictable? No. I mean, even if you ask Dawn or me or anyone, so that probably would have been 100%. And then a lower level of job security, well, of course, that's the whole idea of it. But is it a benefit to them? Did you ask whether it was a benefit to them? Would they rather be working in that way?
I suppose you're right, looking at those questions, I can see why you say that. I think if I sort of flip it a little bit, if we look at other statistics across the UK, when you look at workplace injury, new cases of work-related ill health, that's costing the economy over £20 billion in the UK. So there's something going on here where there's impact to people. They're not working, or if they're leaving work, how can we support those individuals to work? And I acknowledge that there's a whole mix of risk factors in there causing about 20 billion to the economy. So we're really interested in actually how can we support, what's the root causes here? How can we support people to have that more, minimum contract so they know the hours they're going to work? Is there upfront agreements with the employers so that they can work and come in We really want to champion good work that's safe, healthy, sustainable, and it supports people to work in this current changing world that we're in.
Ruth Williamson, we're running out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth. Now, up next, today marks, can you believe this, Nana? Positive Twitter Day, or X Day, actually, I guess it should be. We could all do with a little bit more positivity, couldn't we? I'll find out after this very short break at Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll see you very soon.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Is it time that we actually stop paying for royal security full stop? Is it right that taxpayers fund the security of everyone from Queen Camilla to Prince William? Because there's lots of commentary that perhaps Prince Andrew having his security removed is sort of a first step towards trying to get him out of Royal Lodge.
Well, I mean, that's what King Charles is hoping to try and do, is to sort of try and subtly strong-arm him out of Royal Lodge and into another property, which happens to be Harry and Meghan's old house, Frogmore Cottage. He's resisting, shall we say, any attempts by the King to actually go of his own accord. He says he signed a lease. He said the lease is cast iron, and that's where he's staying. So the King says, OK, you know, he's taken away his security. He believes he doesn't need to have this round-the-clock 24-hour protection. The only security, really, that the taxpayer should be paying for, the King believes, is just himself, Queen Camilla, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, because obviously they are the heirs.
But they are billionaires, aren't they? I mean, they could afford... Isn't Prince William a billionaire? He could afford his own security. Is there a legitimate question about whether or not the British taxpayer should be... But the only reason I ask is because, you know, you look at what Harry and Meghan are up to. They've just been to Colombia, presumably footed the bill themselves, or maybe Colombia did.
I think Colombia invited them.
OK.
They ended up, well, Prince Harry, shall I say, ended up costing us, the taxpayer, over $1 million in Home Office legal fees with that silly case that he brought, demanding that we do pay for police protection for him. So, I mean, he's not a good example. But do they deserve it? Yes, of course they do. It's the King, and they generate, I mean, 80% of the income that they generate goes back into our coffers, goes back into the Treasury.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It is 10:50. This is Britain's Newsroom with Dawn Neeson and Nana Akua.
Right, so today is the 9th annual Positive Twitter Day, or X Day.
And the annual celebration falls on the last Friday of August and encourages all users to be especially kind to one another on social media.
It all
started in 2012.
Well, joining us now is founder of Guido Fawkes, Paul Staines. Paul, talk to me about this Positivity Day.
Well, look, we all know social media is not normally the most civil places. Things can get a bit heated. I mean, I think back, if you remember back a few years during the Brexit era, everyone rowing and screaming at each other, getting very angry, the Corbyn era, very angry. Then the pre-election, just this election going, I think people got a bit worked up. And I believe in free speech. I'm a big proponent of free speech. Twitter or X.
Unfortunately, we're having trouble with your mic, which we are going to.
We're going to fix it up, don't you worry about that.
We will sort that out. Positivity. This is
positivity. This is what's happening.
Vibe.
We've been silenced because of it.
I would just like to say that I did start very positively this morning. I posted a picture of the sun rising.
That was lovely.
With sparkles.
Sparkles.
Sparkles. I like sparkles. Sparkles leading you into the weekend. So I do try and post at least one thing positive on social media every day.
I don't do that at all. In fact, sometimes I actively scout. Sometimes I scowl social media. When they insult me, I like to send them back a comedy vibe. But yes, so we're talking positivity online, Paul.
Yes, so as I was saying, freedom of speech is important, but so is a bit of responsibility. And sometimes on Twitter, and I think back to Brexit, the Corbyn era, just the pre-election just gone, people do have strong views, and it can get a bit heated. And I think maybe today we should try just to be civil to each other. So reach out to somebody you disagree with violently on issues and have a civilised discussion.
Yeah, that won't happen, though. You know that, because they come back at you with some nonsense, and then you can't resist.
I'll choose. Look, I've been a sinner.
Resist, Nana. You can resist, Nana.
I am a reformed sinner. I mean, I think if people always, when I do this every year, people dig out things I've said in the past that were a little bit fruity.
Yes.
And I think I have improved. I think a bit of a concern was my daughters, occasionally chip in, and if Dad is being badly hated on Twitter, it's not a good example, is it?
No.
I was going to say, what reaction do you get from people? Do you get sort of like, yeah, right, good luck with that one? Or do you get actually charities getting involved and saying, actually, this is a serious thing. We do actually all need to be a bit kinder.
In previous years, completely unprompted, a lot of mental health charities got involved, a lot of the anti-bullying charities got involved, and it's important to have a bit of mental respect. And some people do take it very seriously. I mean, there's the whole issue of, particularly I think, girls on, the self-image and all that. It's not helped if people say unkind things about your appearance.
Do you know, I like that, actually. I might post a picture of me looking really rank and expect some nice comments.
I do that on a daily basis, by the way. It doesn't have to be positive.
How could you be so cruel?
I mean, there is an important message here, isn't there, as well? I mean, because we are behind a keyboard, we feel like we can say whatever we want to whoever we want. I mean, if we get the message across that it's not acceptable.
I mean, I have actually been in a room where people have introduced themselves to me very politely, and then 5 seconds later they've turned around and said, I met that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on. You wouldn't say it to my face.
But, in all honesty, actually, it's a good idea. I think it's nice. People being nice to each other on social media. I'm going to start with a very nice post.
Why not? It's summer. Be positive.
I think how positive are you feeling today? gbnews.com/your say. Thank you very much, Paul, for positive Twitter day.
Paul Staines from Guido Fawkes.
Now, up next, find out why thousands of Brits are only receiving a fraction of their state pension payments. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News, the People's Channel. But first, we have Alex with your weather forecast for you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Lots of fine and at times sunny weather around today, and it is going to feel relatively warm, but worth bearing in mind there are a few showers, particularly across the far north of Scotland. Some blustery winds here as well, and some of these could continue through the day. Otherwise, once any early mist and fog patches clear away, it's looking pretty fine with some bright or sunny spells for most of us, in which it should feel pretty warm. Temperatures ranging from highs in the mid to high teens towards the north, low to mid-20s towards the south. As we go through into this evening, there may still be one or two showers affecting parts of Orkney and Shetland perhaps, but otherwise across much of Scotland it is going to be a fine end to the day. Lots of late sunshine, particularly towards the west, perhaps a bit more cloud for eastern parts. A mixture of some late sunny spells and a bit of cloud for parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England, and a similar story across much of the rest of England and Wales as well. But do note that across parts of the southeast we are going to see the winds picking up a little bit later on. Through the night then it is going to be a dry picture for many of us, some clear skies, but in the far south perhaps a few showery bursts starting to push their way in as we head towards dawn tomorrow morning. Otherwise, and away from the far south with those brisk winds and a bit of cloud, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night, some places dipping into single figures. The showers across the far south will become a little bit more widespread across the southern counties as we go through tomorrow, and there's the risk of some thunder mixed in with these, but elsewhere across central northern parts staying fine, plenty of sunshine, and again feeling warm in the sunshine with temperatures ranging from the high teens to low to mid-20s. Looking ahead to Sunday, and there will again be some thundery showers around, most likely across eastern parts, but they could spread into more central areas for a time. Further west it is looking like it will stay mostly dry, but there is some rain in the far west which could arrive later. Temperatures likely to be a bit higher than tomorrow. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. Time is ticking. Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock on Friday, the 30th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Dawn Neeson and Nana Aquia.
Well, the Conservative Party, remember them? Yes. Dame Priti Patel will be launching a major event in her campaign to become leader of the party this morning. Catherine Forster has more.
Yes, 6 people running for the Conservative leadership. We'll hear from Priti Patel yesterday. I was at an event with Tom Tugendhat yesterday. I'll bring you what to expect shortly.
And West Midlands Police have launched a murder investigation after a 13-year-old has been found stabbed to death at a house. Jack Carson has the latest.
Well, as forensic officers here investigate the property behind me, in the last few moments, flowers and tributes laid to that 13-year-old boy fatally stabbed.
More flexible working. All staff will be granted the right to demand a 4-day week in a move championed by Labour Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner.
And a picture of pettiness. Sir Keir Starmer has removed a portrait of Margaret Thatcher from Downing Street as he found it unsettling.
Workplace health checks now. The NHS will go into offices, pubs and building sites to measure and weigh you. Would you welcome that?
So I don't want a set of scales in the newsroom to start weighing myself at the moment. Thank you very much.
I don't care how much I weigh.
Well, you wouldn't care because you don't weigh that. That's why.
It's more about whether you fit into your clothes or not. Do you know what I mean? You want to know, do I fit into last year's clothing? I found my bottom's bigger. Will the scales tell me where the fat is? No.
Bottom isn't bigger.
It is bigger. It's bigger.
But would you remove unsettling portraits of other people?
Not if, well, you know, like, exactly. Would you? So just imagine if you were there in Downing Street and you had to deal with the opposition, a picture of the opposition, someone like Margaret Thatcher.
But he's not the opposition now. He's the Prime Minister.
Well, to him, she's the opposition.
She's a former Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I got quite angry about that. But what do you think? It's very easy to get involved at gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get the news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom, 11:02, and the top story this morning. Ministers have admitted that government-funded childcare support for babies aged 9 months or over does come, they say, with significant challenges. Eligible parents in England will be entitled to 15 hours free childcare a week from next Monday, a plan they inherited from the Conservatives. But the Department for Education claims around 85,000 more places will be needed to be able to extend free support to 30 hours a week from September next year. Baroness Jackie Smith told us this morning it will be an enormously difficult job to make that work.
We've been really knuckling down since we got into government, boosting up the recruitment campaign, for example, do something big which encourages people to come into the childcare workforce, making sure that we've got apprenticeships in place for people, developing the new T-level that in early years education that is actually very popular and successful and enabling more people to be trained. And it's why we'll be working between now and next year with early years providers, with local authorities, to make sure that those places, as far as we can do, are there for parents.
Jackie Smith there speaking earlier. Well, tributes have been paid and flowers have been laid after a 13-year-old boy has died in what detectives are calling a tragic stabbing on the outskirts of Birmingham. A murder investigation is now underway after the teenager was found at a property in Oldbury yesterday afternoon. He was treated by paramedics at that house, but sadly died at the scene from his injuries. The West Midlands Force say that there haven't been any arrests so far. And just a breaking line coming to us from Swansea this morning. We understand that a woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder. That's after the death of a child in the town. Police were called to an address last night, and a 41-year-old woman who lived with that child reportedly is currently being questioned in Bridgend. Detectives at this stage say they're not looking for anyone else. So that news just into us from Swansea, that a woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder after the death of a child there in Wales. More details on that, I'm sure, throughout the morning we will bring them to you. Well, in other news, the government has said that it won't impose a 4-day working week, but does support flexible working options. Labour says it's focused on compressed hours, allowing employees to work longer over fewer days, but not reducing total hours. The Conservatives have criticised those proposals, though, claiming businesses are concerned about potential costs. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people in England in the workplace will be able to get a free heart health check at work. It's part of a new NHS pilot scheme. Workers will provide their information used to determine their risk of developing cardiovascular disease, which can cause heart attacks and stroke. Health experts hope the checks will free up appointments and cut NHS waiting lists. A digital programme is also being developed through the NHS app. And the majority of workers on 0 hours contracts say they want regular hours, according to a new poll. The TUC's found 84% want consistency, compared to just 14% who don't, with many saying they're financially struggling because of too few shifts. The survey also suggests 2/3 of those employed on 0 hours agreements are looking for extra work. Just half of people receiving the new state pension got the full amount last year. New analysis has shown around 150,000 people were on less than just £100 a week. The full state pension should be £221 a week. Experts say one of the main reasons people miss out is because they have gaps in their national insurance record. Sir Keir Starmer has come under fire this morning after reports he removed a portrait of one of his predecessors from Downing Street. Senior Conservatives are accusing the Prime Minister of being petty for taking down the image of Margaret Thatcher. He is, though, said to have found the painting commissioned by Gordon Brown unsettling and placed it elsewhere in number 10. Israel has agreed to a series of humanitarian pauses in Gaza to allow for the vaccination of children against polio. That's according to the WHO. It's understood the campaign will aim to vaccinate at least 600,000 children across the Strip and will begin on Sunday. And turning to the US, where Kamala Harris has defended changing her mind on some key policies since becoming the presidential nominee for the Democrats. Speaking in her first major interview since announcing she was running for the White House, the Vice President told CNN her values haven't changed. And it comes as a new poll suggests she has a 4-point lead over Donald Trump.
We have set goals for the United States of America and, by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
Staying in the US, ABBA have demanded that Donald Trump's presidential campaign remove videos featuring some of their songs. The group's claimed hits, including The Winner Takes It All and Dancing Queen, were used at an event without their permission, but the Republican team have insisted they do have a licence. And finally, it's been reported the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex both attended the funeral of their uncle earlier this week. According to the Sun newspaper, Harry flew from the US for the service for Lord Robert Fellows. And one witness told the paper he and William, though, kept their distance and didn't speak to each other. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, plenty more on that breaking news from Swansea when we get it. Now, though, it's back to Dawn and Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, and the lovely Nana O'Quare.
Well, around 11:30, at about that time, former Home Secretary and Conservative leadership candidate Dame Priti Patel will be hosting a major event in central London. We'll try and bring that to you live.
We're joined now by GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, what are we expecting Priti Patel to say this morning?
Yes, good morning, both. Well, she's saying that she's going to lay out her vision for the party and for the country, and her sort of tagline, if you like, is Priti, unite to win. We're going to hear a lot about unity from her, as we will from, I suspect, all the candidates, given that one of the reasons they did so very badly in the election was this very public infighting between different Conservative factions. So she's got another 3 words that's emblazoned everywhere: experience, strength, unity. Of course, she is highly experienced. She's been an MP since 2010. She was Home Secretary under Boris Johnson. The Rwanda plan, was in many ways her baby, but also the points-based system that she and Boris Johnson put into place is what led to the huge increase, largely in legal migration. Now, she's obviously to the right of the party. She's a great favourite with party members, and she's going to say that they haven't done anything wrong, that it was basically MPs who messed it up. She'll go back to Conservative values, and she wants to give the members much more power. So if she gets to the final 2, of course, the members make the call.
Catherine, thank you very much.
Very interesting. Now, moving on, some breaking news this morning. we've heard that West Midlands police have launched a murder investigation after a 13-year-old boy has died after being stabbed in Albury yesterday.
Now, the 13-year-old was treated by paramedics. However, despite their best efforts, the boy sadly passed away. GBNews West Midland reporter Jack Carson joins us now. Jack, can you give us an update on the situation there?
Well, in the last few moments, we've seen members of the public come and lay floral tributes to that 13-year-old boy who was fatally stabbed here at an address yesterday. Police confirmed that they were called to the property here on Lovett Avenue in Albury at around 4 p.m, where paramedics, despite their best efforts, were unable to save the boy. This morning we've seen a team of forensic officers from West Midlands Police enter and leave the property multiple times with lots of different equipment as they go about starting and beginning their investigation here. West Midlands Police confirmed that they're trying to find out exactly what happened in what they're calling a tragic incident and use their lines of inquiry to find out who is involved. Detective Superintendent Sean Edwards from the homicide team at West Midlands Police said it is absolutely tragic that a young life has been lost here. They say they've got special officers who will be supporting the family of the boy, and detectives, they say, working flat out to find out whoever is responsible and bring them into custody.
Jack, thank you very much. Yeah, another horrific stabbing of a child. What is the world?
I really cannot understand what is happening with our youth. If you just joined us, welcome. It's 12 minutes after 11 o'clock. Now, only around half of the people received their full state pension last year. That's according to new figures by Royal London.
Calculations from spring 2023 show that around 150,000 people receiving less than £100 per week.
Well, the full state pension should be £221 a week. So joining us now, the chair of Women Against State Pension Inequality, Angela Madden. Now, Angela, it's literally half of the people who are eligible are claiming it, and yet the other half are not. I mean, it's 1.7 million as opposed to 3.4 million or so. What's going wrong? Why are pensioners not claiming the full amount?
Good morning, Dawn and Nana.
Good morning.
Well, it's not that they're not claiming, it's that they haven't earned enough to achieve the full amount. In the new state pension, you have to have 30 years contribution and you have to pay full contributions. So if you have a workplace pension, let's say, your employer could have decided to contract you out of the part of this state pension scheme, so that gives you a lower contribution. But if you take WASPy women, for example, born in the 1950s, we started work maybe late 60s, early 70s, depending on how long we stayed in education. And up until 1978, if you had children before then, you were given family allowance. And family allowance didn't attract pension credits. It was only when it was changed to child benefit in 1978 that then women could claim pension credits. So people could have had their babies fairly young, in their early 20s, had 5 years off until the children went to school, and they weren't given any pension credits for that. And of course, women tend to be the child bearers, and they are the child carers quite often. So they have an interrupted history of paying national insurance contributions.
So it's penalising women, really, isn't it? That if you are a woman, because you've had the child, who's obviously contributing positively to society to keep the population going, you're now punished via the state pension because you haven't done a solid 30 years. That's terrible.
That's right, yes. Yes, and quite often, you know, early in the careers, it's childcare. Quite often later in your career, it's caring for your parents or, you know, older relatives who don't have children to care for them, you know, because the social care system in our country is broken as well. So people tend to have to look after their own family, and then they have to have a choice between working and caring.
Angela, the way you've done a sterling job fighting for women who have been caught in this particular bracket, but why is claiming something that we pay into all our lives, most of us, made so complicated to understand? I mean, an estimated 850,000 eligible pensioners are not currently claiming their pension credit, which means they're going to face an even harsher winter than they should do.
Yes, there are two things for that. Some people don't know about it, but some people have never claimed benefits in their lives. What they see as, claiming things that they're not automatically entitled to, and so they don't want to, take money away from other people in the country who they feel might be more needy. We're not a generation who did claim benefits. And I think that habit still sticks.
What about the forms, though, as well? Because, I mean, I've got a pension credit application form in front of me, which, I mean, I'll read you one of the questions. Are you separated from your partner? If you are separated only because someone is temporarily in a hospital or care home, tick no. Yeah, I mean, this is, or yes. These are, some of the questions are a little bit sort of a bit dicey and actually would take you some time. And I'm concerned if my mum was to be doing this, I mean, she would look at this and say, she'd ask me to do it, she wouldn't be able to do this. This is a bit unfair on the pensioners, isn't it?
It is a bit unfair. And, of course, a lot of them are online now as well. And of my generation, some of them don't do online at all. I've actually helped some women fill in these forms, that have come to me and asked for it. I mean, I'm no expert, but, sometimes two heads are better than one. So we do try and all help each other. But the other thing is, I mean, sometimes we're equal and we have to have this thing called equality. But claiming pension credit, for example, I'm sure they take household income into account.
So they probably wouldn't get it.
If you have someone who has more money than you, and then all of that's taken into account, and I'm not sure that should be.
Angela, just one very quick final question. We're running out of time, unfortunately. Do you feel, your campaign's been going for quite a while now, do you feel that the government, either government, no matter what political colour they are actually listening to your concerns?
I think they've listened more since the Ombudsman put his report before Parliament in March 21. But we're now, nearly at the end of August, almost 6 months on, and we still haven't got anything concrete. But
and very quickly, I had to ask you very quickly about the winter fuel allowance. Your thoughts, you've got about 20 seconds. What are your thoughts on Keir Starmer's winter fuel allowance removal from pensioners?
We are so disappointed, it's unbelievable. They go on about rich pensioners. I mean, there are some. Obviously, they know Theresa May and she's very rich, but that's very unusual. Most of us are just getting by. And it's no good for the economy either, because we tend to spend the money we've got. What we have to do now is save £200. So we will actually reduce our spending by that amount, because we have to pay a bill that we wouldn't have, had to think about before. We would have had that £200 to contribute.
Angela, thank you so much for your thoughts. We're going to have to leave it there. That's Angela, madam. She's the chair of Women Against State Pensions.
Oh, so angry, honestly. What do you think? gbnews.com/you'll say. You must be angry. I'm angry. Right, up next, we're going to get the scales out. Oh, God. As the NHS will soon be coming into your workplace to perform health checks. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Did you know several Paralympic GB track and field athletes are aiming to go for gold this summer in Paris? So aside from pure talent, a British firm has incorporated, get this, space technology in the materials of running clothes to help athletes perform at their ultimate capacity. I'm not sure if I believe this, but we'll find out in a sec. Trailblazing scientists, engineers and designers at British firm Rheon Labs have taken an idea first used in a NASA project, and they've now developed it for over 15 years at Imperial College in London.
First of all, please can you explain to us a bit more about how and what this incredible technology is?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, our founder, Dr. Dan Plant, spent many years developing these kind of dynamic materials. That means they behave in what's called non-Newtonic way. So they don't follow the rules. Effectively, they can change their behavior depending on kind of stress or stretch you apply to it. So what you get on an athlete level, if you imagine you have a garment, it's supercharged. It's such that the garment changes its support depending on your movement or your activity or the speed at which you run.
So you're saying that it generates, what, more sort of kinetic energy, is that right?
Not quite. It makes you effectively make more out of your own energy. Spot the athletes with the wavy curves and stripes, you'll see that. So that's super polymer we have in combination with these stripes that are kind of built around the way your muscles moves.
You said the difference between first and fourth place is a fraction of a percent.
Yeah, that's the very main difference it makes. So even if you manage to kind of make more of your own energy and improve your performance by 1%, that's the difference between podium and non-podium.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 22 minutes after 11 o'clock if you just tuned in. This is Britain's Newsroom with Dawn Neeson and me, Nana Acquia. And joining us, political commentator Ammon Bogle and also former Labour MP Bill Rammell. They're here to discuss the papers. We're going to kick it off with a piece in the Telegraph. Workers get the right to demand a 4-day week. Bill Rammell.
The detail isn't coming out of this. It's not 4 days instead of 5 days. It's a compressed working week to do all your hours within...
Over 4 days. People get that. We get
and
that.
as long as there are protections and exemptions, and, you know, if you look at what's being proposed, unless it's reasonably not feasible, then I think it's good news. And it can actually help to boost productivity. There are people with childcare responsibilities, with caring responsibilities, that this could work for.
I don't see how working 10 hours for 4 days will be more helpful. I'm sure it'll be actually... Anyway, listen, people can do this anyway. You could ask your employer for a 4-day working week.
Yeah, but
so what's the big deal?
This is a statutory right that the employer has to consider it. It's the same as when the last Labour government brought in the right to request flexible working. Before then, you could request, and you were mostly told to get lost. There was then a statutory right that the employer had to consider it, and I think most people would think that's reasonably a good thing.
Man, I mean, coming to you, the balance of power is basically shifted away from the employer to the employees by the unions. What a surprise there. But it's OK if you're running a big company, fine. But if you're running a very small company with a handful of employers...
Exactly. So this type of thing is, again, nanny state creep. It will entangle small businesses, sole proprietor businesses with more red tape and situations where they simply wouldn't be able to exist. So I would argue that let the free market sort itself out. It usually is the best way to do it.
Is this not a distraction from Keir Starmer's winter fuel allowance, which is very, very unpopular? I mean, they're chucking everything out now, aren't they? Everything seems to be coming out, well, yet, really, what about... We should be talking about the winter fuel allowance, not 4 hours working week, potentially, or whatever, 4-day working week.
Well, you have to talk about a lot of things.
Well, you do, but at the moment, this is a very... You know, the winter fuel allowance has become a very unpopular policy, and even the smoking stuff as well, chucking that out there as well, for us to be talking about it.
If you want me to talk about the winter fuel allowance, there has been a case for means testing it since it first came in the late 1990s. Since then, we've had the triple lock, which means that if you're a pensioner today, you're less likely to be in poverty than someone in work. So I think
Well, that doesn't really help anyone. That's an interesting stat, but how does that help me as a pensioner?
Because it means that you don't give blanket benefits to people just because of their age. Now, I think there is a case for means testing. I actually think the means test was too hard, linking it to pensions credit, and I expect that in the budget that will be amended.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. A pensioner will now have to answer 243 questions.
Exactly.
We've been through them. And the threshold is what, £12,500 of savings. That's not a very high threshold.
I've got these questions here. Look.
I think you'll get some tapering so that it goes higher up the income scale.
I think it's very unrealistic. Bill Ramble, this is the form. These are the questions. It's about 20 pages long. It's to be online. You're going to ask some pensioner to fill all that in. It's absurd.
That needs drastically amending.
I mean, it's disgraceful.
Well, I think what we ought to be doing is ending this so-called climate aid budget. Yeah, £12 billion. We shouldn't be taking money, stealing money from our own pensioners to give it away to all these, make-believe projects overseas.
OK, and let's go on to the story we have been trailing all the way through the show, which is also costing £7 million of your money, by the way. And, Aman, this is your story. Workers to be weighed in the office for a health MOT.
Indeed. I mean, look, this is Labour's commissars creeping into the workspace little bit by little bit.
Well, they do it in China, don't they, or Japan? They do this in Japan, or is it China?
In Japan, it's actually compulsory to be weighed.
This is infantilising people from taking responsibility for their own health, for making decisions to look after themselves. Why should a workplace be weighing people?
But Bill, we're not very good at taking care of
it. Won't even work. It won't even work, Bill, though, because people will say, "Oh, this is against my human rights and this, that, and the other." Even if an employer said, "Look, you're overweight, you need to do this, this, and that," people will be telling them that you're being weightist or fattest or this or that.
Well, I declare an interest. I'm slightly overweight, and this chair, just like Dawn's, keeps
Well,
falling down.
It does it to everyone. It does it to everyone.
But let's get some perspective on this. It's not compulsory. It's sensible. It's saying at the moment you can have a GP MOT health check, but most people don't take it, particularly men don't take it. And this is about working with employers to make it available within the workplace. And, employers have a vested interest because when their staff get ill and they get sick and they're off work, that hits their productivity. So I actually think this is a win-win. But it's not compulsion. It's certainly not commissars.
Yeah, but where's the feedback loop? So if somebody says you're overweight, you've got high blood pressure, you've got high cholesterol and high blood sugar, then what? You would go and wait 2 years to get to see a doctor?
No, you'd probably... So if you've got blood pressure, you'd be given blood pressure tablets. If
well,
you've
not
got
necessarily.
high cholesterol,
Everything takes longer.
Statins.
Nah.
But yes, we need to tackle the crisis in the health service that we've...
I'd rather see them do that.
Let's talk about another health-related story. This is Starmer and the smoking ban, which has really kicked off, hasn't it? Big story to start off with now, even bigger today.
Smoke and mirrors.
Exactly. I think, as Nana was saying earlier, this is, again, more distraction. Look, again, more nanny state creep. What's he going to do next? Ban people from drinking alcohol? Ban people from, I don't know, eating high-fat foods? Where does it end?
Well, I mean, look, this is just red meat, isn't it? Chuck some red meat at them and they won't talk about my winter fuel allowance and all the other stuff and the VAT on private schools and all that.
It's sensible. Look, I'll tell you what.
But it's a problem that no one was talking about. So nobody here was talking about smokers smoking outside. Listen, I'd be more worried about the carbon monoxide when just because it's an odourless gas. You're sitting there, cars are going whizzing past, you're in the outdoor area smoking a fag. Now, look, carbon monoxide is odourless, it's far worse for you.
But you know what? I think the public are ahead of the politicians. I was an MP who voted for the first smoking ban in 2007, and I will acknowledge I had misgivings. Is this going too far? Is this in a nanny state? I took a poll amongst my constituents before the vote, 70% backs the ban. And you look at this measure, already YouGov have done a poll, 58% of people.
But I'm not saying that people wouldn't support... If it was me, I'd ban smoking altogether. If it were introduced now, it would never exist. But the point I'm making is that there are far greater, more important things to be dealing with in terms of policy than this.
But Nana, governments have to deal with a million things all at the same time. This is one, and they're probably dealing with it earlier than they otherwise would have done because there was a leak.
Because of the winter fuel allowance, probably.
It was wrong when Rishi was wanting to bring in the escalator smoking ban for people born after 2009.
Well, I think that's far more challenging.
And yeah, exactly. And it's wrong this way as well. You have to trust the people to make the decisions about their own lives, about their own health. That's the way to do it.
Ban smoking.
Well,
that's what they should do if they're that serious about it.
Do you know what? There was a Vox Pop on radio yesterday, and I heard one guy outside a pub smoking. He said it's probably right. We smokers need to be protected from ourselves.
Yeah, ban it. I would ban it. I'd get rid of it.
We're not very good at managing our own health, are we?
No.
We know we've got an obesity problem, and we know smoking costs the NHS an awful lot of money.
Yeah,
and particularly
we
men.
We should educate people. Yes, of course, we should encourage them. But I think banning stuff is vehemently un-British, I would say.
Well, I don't care about being un-British. It's just unhealthy. Smoking is pointless.
Yes,
and if it were me...
People should be encouraged to realise that themselves.
Yes, well, that's fine. But if it were me, this would never have been allowed anyway.
Do you know what? Go back to when I first started working and I commuted into London and I got on a train carriage with 6 seats, and you opened the door and the smoke hit you.
Oh, yes, I remember.
You got to work
I remember.
stinking with a cough. That was obscene. It would never be allowed.
People would
we
smoke.
progressively make change.
We smoked on trains, we smoked on tubes, we smoked on planes. I mean, utter madness. Bill Rammell.
And I'm old enough to remember a typewriter and an ashtray in the newsroom.
Well, you're not that old.
I am really that old.
No, we all remember that as well.
Oh, don't, yeah, with an old-fashioned spike in any case. But we're not spiking you, so we're saying thank you very much for joining us.
Hannah Vogel, Bill Rammell,
very
lovely.
much. And now it's time for your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 11:30, and the top story this morning, a murder investigation has been launched after a 13-year-old boy was stabbed to death at a house near Birmingham. The teenager was treated by paramedics but sadly died at the scene in Oldbury yesterday afternoon. Detectives have said it is absolutely tragic that a young life has been lost, and at this stage they say no one has been arrested over that attack. Well, just a reminder of that breaking news we brought you from Swansea in the last half hour or so, that a woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder there after the death of a child. Police were called to a home in the town last night. A 41-year-old woman who lived with that child is now being questioned in Bridgend. Detectives say that it's an absolutely tragic incident and that no one has been arrested at this stage apart from that woman. Well, the government says it won't impose a 4-day working week, but does support flexible working options. Labour says it's focused on compressed hours, allowing employees to work longer over fewer days, not reducing total hours. The Conservatives, though, have criticised the proposals and claim businesses are concerned about potential costs. Tens of thousands of people in England will be able to get a free health check at work as part of a new NHS pilot scheme. Workers will provide information used to determine their risk of developing cardiovascular disease, which can, of course, cause heart attacks and stroke. Health experts think the checks could free up appointment times and cut NHS waiting lists. Parents in England have been warned the expansion of government-funded support for childcare won't be plain sailing. From Monday, eligible working parents of those aged 9 months and over will get support of 15 hours free childcare a week. But the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, claims around 85,000 more places will still be needed next September to extend that free support to 30 hours a week. In the US, Kamala Harris has defended changing her mind on some policies since becoming the Democratic national presidential nominee. Speaking in her first major interview since announcing she was running for the White House, the Vice President told CNN last night her values haven't changed. And it comes as a new poll suggests she has now a 4-point lead over Republican Donald Trump. And it's reported the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex both attended the funeral of their uncle this week. According to the Sun newspaper, Harry flew from the United States for that service for Lord Robert Fellows. And one witness also told the paper he and Prince William did keep their distance and didn't speak to each other. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now, good afternoon, Britain, with just Emily Carver. Let down by the men, Emily. Come on, what have you done with them?
I've been abandoned today. Tom Harwood won't be here, but we have a big show lined up, so I'll be taking the reins. Quite the story from Stephanie Tetchy. We all know Stephanie Tetchy. She comes on a lot, particularly to talk about showbiz, but this time it's a big political story that I think will run. Jess Phillips claimed she received preferential treatment at an NHS hospital in Birmingham because of her position on the Gaza ceasefire. Now,
really?
What does this say
Why did
about
she
the
admit
NHS?
That? Why did she admit that?
It
That's
was
interesting.
Reportedly An evening with Jess Phillips. It must have got onto the topic of the NHS, her recent emergency trip to the A&E, and she said this. Why did she say this, and what does this mean about some of the people working in the NHS? And that could possibly be the case.
Why would she even say that, though? But I'm glad she has. Now we are aware of it.
Very so we're going to be digging into that, finding out a little bit more about that story. Also, record numbers of non-UK nationals in this country not working, economically inactive. Can we afford this? One report saying it's costing us £8 billion. And is Keir Starmer really so petty and so ideological to remove a portrait of Thatcher from the Thatcher ring?
Yes.
Spoiler alert, yes.
Well, he seems to have a problem with strong women, or women in general, because he has struggled to define one. So
well, very difficult indeed, and troubles with Angela Rayner in the past, I'm sure. But yes, I mean, only a year ago or so, he was praising Thatcher for meaningful change in this country, obviously to win over Tory voters.
All lies,
and it worked.
It's all lies.
So there you go. We've got a huge amount coming up. Also, Priti Patel, she's serving up mango lassies, the Indian smoothie drink, at her launch. So we'll be catching up with Chopper on that as well.
All right, Emily Carver, sounds like a sensational show. We're looking forward to that. That's Emily Carver. She's up in about 25 minutes' time. All that and more till midday. We're keeping also an eye out for Dame Priti Patel to make a speech in central London about why she should be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Remember them?
Ouch.
This
Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Don't go too far away. See you soon.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. It's the penultimate day of meteorological summer, and there's going to be quite a summery feel to things for many of us as we go through this afternoon, because high pressure is firmly in control, and high pressure generally means settled weather, which is what we have. For most, it is going to stay dry, not for all of us. There are some showers, particularly towards the far northeast of Scotland, and some blustery winds here, but all of this will ease as we go through the day. Otherwise, though, like I said, it's looking dry, although there will be some cloud bubbling up as we go through the afternoon, perhaps becoming a bit more widespread. Still some sunshine, and in the sunshine, feeling pretty warm with temperatures up a nudge compared to yesterday. Staying mostly fine for many of us as we go through the end of the day. Still some sunshine around in places. Like I said, the showers across the far northeast of Scotland will ease as we go through the day, but a few for Orkney and Shetland continuing still as we go into the evening. Otherwise, across the rest of Scotland, lots of fine weather to be had, lots of sunshine to look forward to in between the cloud. A similar story for Northern Ireland, northern central parts of England and Wales, but perhaps towards the far south-southeast of the UK, things will start to turn a little bit cloudier, perhaps a little bit breezier as we go through this evening. Overnight, many places staying dry, and there will be clear skies for most, away from the far southeast, where we are going to see that cloud building and perhaps a few showers arriving as we head towards dawn on Saturday morning. Otherwise, and in other places with the clear skies, again, it is going to be a relatively cool night, although temperatures may be slightly higher than last night. As we go through Saturday, then a bit of cloud towards the southeast, and this is going to become a bit more widespread across central southern parts as we go through the day. And there is the risk of a few showers developing towards the south, and these could turn heavy, possibly thundery. But further north, it's staying dry with plenty of sunshine around, and again, feeling warm in the sunshine. I'll be back soon. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 39 minutes after 11 o'clock. This is Britain's Newsroom with Dawn Meeson and me, Nana Akweer. Now, lots of you have been in touch with your comments. GBNews.com/
chuckling away.
You'll
to
say,
herself.
Eileen, I had to laugh. Eileen Dowd as well. She's put this comment on. She went, when Labour was first elected, the Socialists started crowing, the adults are back in the room. Now, after 8 weeks of railroading through stupid ideological policies before Parliament reconvenes, Starmer has removed Margaret Thatcher's portrait from the Thatcher room. How puerile is that? These people are not adults, they're petulant students' union rejects.
But they did claim the adults were back in the room.
I mean, is that an adult thing to do? No, they're not back in the room.
Lots of you are commenting on the cigarette thing as well, banning cigarettes. Stop selling cigarettes if they want it banned. Well, they won't do that because it racks in loads of money in taxes as well. And of course, this is a point. That was Jenny, by the way. And Maggie says if they ban the sale of cigarettes, it would just force it underground, and we'll have smokeasies. Remember, like speakeasies.
Well, listen, at least it's not above ground. I think people will probably stop in the end. Look, that's what I think. Look, if it was brought out now, if somebody invented a cigarette now and said, oh, we're going to sell that, people would say, no, that you can't do that. Lisa says this about weighing people in the office. She says, so they'll find you're overweight, then sack you. I don't think they'll get away with that, not in this country.
It's not compulsory, and I don't think they can sack people.
Well, in Japan, they send you off on a diet and all sorts, don't they?
Yeah, well, some people could do with it, to be fair, Nana.
Do you think?
I'm not mentioning any names, of course, but if you're watching, darling, good morning. But, I mean, especially for men.
Well,
men notoriously never get their health checked.
I don't think it'll be a very. I don't think it'll be a very tough check. It'll be blood pressure and all that. It won't be getting your bloods done in a proper thing. And I think some people might just get a false sense of security with it all. This one from Elizabeth. She's talking about the right to demand a 4-day week. She says the right to demand 4-day week would not want to be a business owner. If workers have more rights, businesses will go to the wall. Unbelievable. This country is an utter nightmare. I think the world is doomed. She says.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are saying that. And meanwhile, Gary says about Bill Runnell, who was reviewing our papers for us just now. Come on, if the Tories had done this, i.e. removing the winter fuel benefit for pensioners, Labour would have been up in arms.
They would have.
Try living on a basic state pension like my old man does. It's not easy. Many people still angry about that one.
Well, the 4-day week has also been quite a popular topic. If you want, this is from Alison, if you want a 4-day week, get a job with a 4-day week or 0 hours. Obviously, a lot of people on 0 hours want the perks of a full-time job. Unfortunately, they have signed up to 0 hours. Again, get another job if you aren't happy. There's lots about. We hear that all the time. Well, that's it, isn't it? Moving the goalposts, making it difficult for employers, very unrealistic, especially when you're talking about growth, and then saying that there'll now be this sort of assumption that you're allowed to just say, look, by the way, I want to work for 4 days a week.
This one's good. Do keep them coming in. This is from Bex. I'm surprised there are any stories about Keir Starmer today. I thought he didn't work on Fridays.
Oh, that's true. He wants a 4-day.
That's why he wants a 4-day work.
Exactly, isn't it?
And do Fridays.
Well, I'm sure he's realised that that's totally impractical. If you are running the country, you can't say, I'm going to take every Friday off. Just excuse me, no, that's not going to happen, Keir. I don't know why you even thought that would be a possibility.
It's just not feasible, is it? I mean, you know, in principle, yes, flexible working, but forcing companies to do it, especially small. Imagine if you're running, I don't know, a local baker's in the high street and you've got 4 members of staff.
Yeah.
And they all go, right, OK, I'm not working Friday. What do you do?
Well, listen, we're waiting for Priti Patel to make a major speech in London about her leadership bid for the Tory party. But joining us now, GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, what can we expect from Priti?
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of talk about unity, as we will hear from all 6 candidates, because, of course, all the very public infighting was a real turn-off for the public, wasn't it? One of the reasons why they did so badly in the last general election. And her tagline, if you like, is Priti, unite to win. As people at the launch event with T-shirts emblazoned with the words experience, strength, unity. And of course, Priti Patel does have huge experience, doesn't she? She's been a Conservative MP since 2010. She's former Home Secretary. She was in that role when the Rwanda plan that Labour have just ditched was conceived. She's very experienced. She's popular with the members, and she's going to lay out her vision for the country and for the party. And that is critical, isn't it? Because, of course, they've been decimated, haven't they, down to 121 seats. How are they going to rebuild? What sort of party do they want to be? Now, I expect she's going to talk about sticking to real conservative values, low taxes, etc. I also expect she'll have a lot to say about the members. Quite a lot of Conservative Party members are pretty fed up, feel that they've been neglected, etc. Lots of them were very cross indeed, of course, when Rishi Sunak replaced Liz Truss, who had been their choice. Of course, the counter-argument to that is that it's not terribly fair, perhaps, that a very tiny percentage of the population got to pick a Prime Minister. So she's a favourite with the members like her. And also, I think worth saying that although she's been quite quiet over the last year or so, she's been very busy behind the scenes, quietly getting on with it, building relationships. She's well liked by MPs as well. Now, at the moment, she doesn't really seem to have the momentum. Robert Jenrick seems to be the favourite, but I think the field really is pretty wide open. There isn't a very, very clear front runner. We don't know who's going to get this come November the 2nd. So it'll be interesting to see. We're expecting her to start speaking any minute. Our political editor, Chris Hope, is there. He's been tweeting pictures of some very nice drinks and mango lassies. So we will hear more very shortly.
Catherine, can you just explain briefly how this process works now? We'll have a winner on November the 2nd, but what's the process leading up to that?
Yeah, it's a very elongated process going right through till November. So we've currently got 6 candidates. Now, MPs are going to vote on those in the coming days. It will whittle them down to 4. Those 4 will then go forward to the Conservative conference. They'll sell their wares, set out their stall. They'll have pretty much a very public beauty parade.
No person left
MPs
unspoken
will then
to.
vote
And if you have
again.
a concern, and the number of times I knocked on doors of Priti, they knew her. They knew her, that she'd either helped them or they're aware of what she had done, and that is why, when we had that great misfortune in the general election, she won with a good majority.
Sorry, Catherine, we can hear you. Carry on. Sorry, Catherine, do keep talking.
Yes.
She's a
So they will then
campaigner,
they
and she
will then
galvanises people too.
vote again to release final 2 candidates chosen by MPs. Now, at that point, there's then a few weeks, and then the members will get the final say. So the members will pick the future leader. And again, you know, that has been problematic in that the members tend to be to the right of the parliamentary party. They'll tend to pick the person most far to the right. Now, there's plenty of Conservatives feel that that's where the Conservatives need to go. But there's plenty of others, Mel Stride, for example, who's much more sort of centrist, who feel that going to the right, pandering perhaps to reform, is not the way to rebuild and get elected potentially down the line.
That's interesting, that, because a lot of people would have said that that's why they lost it. So they're not really pandering to reform, but perhaps some would like them to return to their Conservative roots. Otherwise, I can't see them doing well.
Catherine, do you think this long, drawn-out process that you have just so accurately described is actually going to go in their favour? A lot of people are going, Conservatives, who are they already?
It's hard to say, and admittedly, so far it's all been quite lacklustre. It's not getting much attention because, you know, they've only got 121 seats. The Lib Dems have got 70, so they do seem less relevant. But, you know, it is very important for a healthy democracy that we have a strong, functioning opposition, and we need the Conservatives to provide that. Now, you could say, and plenty of people do, you know, where are the Conservatives? They're engaged in this long, drawn-out, navel-gazing exercise of working out who they are while we need a strong opposition. But on the other hand, they're in this for the long haul, aren't they? They've had this absolute catastrophic result for them. And if they rush, put a leader in, choose a direction, you know, they may rule themselves out for years and years to come. So the thinking is, let's take some time, let's take stock, the next election 4 years plus away, let's do this properly. I think it's worth saying, I mean, there's lots of these events popping up now. This is Priti Patel's launch event, but I was at a Tom Tugendhat event yesterday. Now, he, of course, is a one nation Tory, much more sort of centrist. But what fascinated me in his speech was that he said, if I'm elected, I am going to pledge a legally binding cap of 100,000 on net migration. Now, Priti's coming up. Let's hear what she has to say.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. It's so good to see so many friends and colleagues here today and supporters. And Kevin, thank you for your super introduction. If anyone's going to motivate our members, it's absolutely Kevin. There's no doubt about that. The Conservative and Unionist Party is the greatest political party in the world. And I'm proud to stand here today for its leadership. Under my leadership, I will bring our party experience and strength, and I will get us back to winning ways. But before I say more about my offer to members of Parliament, my plans to empower our loyal and dedicated party members, and my commitment for our party to serve the nation and the British people with professionalism and integrity, I want to thank my fellow candidates, my colleagues, for standing in this leadership contest. Some of you know we've been travelling across the country in recent weeks, debating in good spirits, but importantly, showing the country the very best of our party. And I pay credit to them, because when this contest is over, we'll work together to do what is right for our party and the country. Now, I don't need to remind anyone in this room as to why this leadership contest is taking place. And many column inches have been devoted to how we fell to such a historic defeat. I have heard loud and clear what the British people have had to say. And while we will reflect and learn on the lessons, under my leadership, our party will be firmly focused on the future. So today, 8 weeks on, our attitude will change. And we will draw a line in the sand, because it's time to move on and move forward. I'm an optimist with clear goals, and I will revive our party so that we can provide the leadership that our great country needs. Because conservatism has not failed. Our values and our principles remain as true as ever, and they are still shared by the majority of the public. Our love for our community and our country, our commitment to the rule of law, and our passion for furthering the conservative traditions of extending opportunity more widely by promoting freedom and enterprise to deliver security and success for our country. Those are timeless values. They bind the communities of Britain together and are the values that we Conservatives have championed more than any other political party. When I travel around our great country, I see how much our values mean to the British people. It makes me proud to be British when I see them in action every single day. I see the excitement of a young family getting their keys to their first home and valuing the security that comes with it, just as I did with my first home. I see the great research, inventions and innovations in our universities and businesses. I see the incredible care given to our hospitals, treating and curing conditions which have inflicted pain and suffering on our loved ones. I see inspirational teachers in our classrooms, helping to educate and develop our children. And I see brave police officers bringing order to our streets and confronting the perpetrators of crime. And I see the entrepreneur boldly taking a risk on new businesses, just like my parents did, while working 7 days a week to provide for their family and to give their children the chance to fulfill their dreams and achieve their potential. What I don't see is what Labour sees. Earlier this week, we had the spectacle of a Labour Prime Minister standing in the Rose Garden of Downing Street, delivering one of the most feeble, pitiful and dishonest speeches you will ever hear. He was feeble in his claim to say that he was tough with the trade unions in pay negotiations. That was after he immediately rolled over to appease his paymasters at the expense of the British taxpayer. He was pitiful to claim that he is locking up criminals after spending years in Parliament voting against tougher prison sentences for violent criminals and sex offenders, and campaigning to block the deportation of dangerous foreign national offenders. He was completely dishonest with his complaints and his claims about the British economy that he has inherited, which were clearly made to justify his nasty financial assault on the very people who deserve dignity in their retirement and who've spent their working lives contributing to the very fabric of our nation. That's our parents and our grandparents. From the painful and damaging tax rises upon Britain's hard-working families and businesses that we now know are coming, to the rot and the corruption of Starmer's cronies being appointed to the civil service, all we have seen over the last 56 days is a Labour government of self-service, politics without principle. While Labour are trash-talking Britain for their own desperate means, I see a proud and resilient country, a country that knows that we face challenges, but is determined to overcome them and is hungry for success. I see a country that pulled together to deliver the most successful rollout of the COVID vaccine. I see a country of world leaders in fintechs, in science, AI, agriculture, renewable technologies, just to name a few. And as we've seen in the Olympics and the Paralympics, a country of inspiring and world-beating sportsmen and women, we are not called Great Britain for nothing. And with our country now at the mercy of a self-serving Labour government, a reality that gets more frightening as each and every day passes, I will ensure that our party has all the tools needed to take them on and to send Starmer packing. For the Conservative Party, for it is our party, the Conservative Party. Unlike Labour, politics has always been about something much more than gaining power. It has been about serving the nation. We're a patriotic party, a national party who believes in the union and the matters which concern hard-working people every single day. And I will lead us from opposition to government so that we can serve the British people again and give them back the freedoms and the dignity that Labour would take away from them. And to do that, we will work with one team, with one voice, and with a meritocratic team built on our collective skills and experience. My clear offer to our Conservative parliamentary colleagues is this: support me to be our next party leader, and I will lead you and support you to be the success we all want to see for our country and for our party. The professionalism I will bring to the party will restore our ability to campaign so that you can be leaders in your communities and take on and defeat the other parties challenging us from wherever they come on the political spectrum. The Reds, the Yellows, the Greens, and that non-Conservative shade of blue which occasionally pops up at election time. And if you back me to be your leader, I will unite our parliamentary party. We are 121 MPs in Westminster. We are blessed with talent and experience from a wide range of backgrounds. And I promise you that under my leadership, every one of you will have a role to play in supporting our efforts to be the strongest and most effective team possible. Because I have seen before what we can achieve together when we work together to promote our values and serve our nation. As a Treasury Minister, I worked alongside our then Chancellor, cutting taxes and delivering economic stability for Britain. At DWP, alongside the formidable Ian Duncan-Smith, we worked to transform the welfare system and support people into employment and better paid work, putting into practice that Conservative belief of the dignity and security that work provides. In DFID, I led the way for the transparency and effectiveness of overseas aid and tackled its exploitation and abuse. And when I was Home Secretary, we increased police officers to record numbers and gave them the powers to fight crime. We gave victims of crime more rights and improved services and support for the survivors of domestic abuse. We ended free movement and brought in reforms to our immigration and asylum system. We kept our country safe with new measures to protect our national security and our country from terrorist threats and hostile state actors. We did all of that and more. You have in me a leader who will fight for the British people and show how our values offer solutions and challenges to Britain as we face them today. Now, I want to address our amazing party members, our incredible grassroots activists, some of whom have joined us today from around the country. You are the heart and soul of our party. And for over 30 years, since the late, great Cecil Parkinson recruited me to join that cause, I have been proud to be a grassroots Conservative and to campaign across the country with you. Come rain or shine, in good times and in bad. You pound the pavements and knock on doors and deliver leaflets. You raise the funds to fight local campaigns. And you come face to face with the electorate, doing your best to persuade them to put their cross in the box of Conservative candidates standing for election. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for everything that you do. Under my leadership, you'll no longer be taken for granted. I will give you back control of your party. And I have a plan for my first 100 days as leader to get the central party, that's CCHQ, working for you. I will empower you with more say over the policies we develop, drawing upon your expertise and ideas that you have. I will put in place a process for an elected chair of our party. And I'm going to reform the controversial and unacceptable parliamentary candidate selection process, which saw candidates imposed upon local associations, parachuted down because they were chosen favourite. What CCHQ will do is to support the vetting, the training and the development of candidates, support you all to recruit the brightest and the best to put themselves forward to stand for our great party, and support local associations in target seats to select the candidates you want within the next 2 years so we can lead our Conservative communities back in that fight back for our party. But our fight back is more than just winning back the seats at the next general election. Under my leadership, our party will fight to win seats across every level of government. And that starts next year with the local elections. We have some brilliant leaders in local government championing Conservative values. And I know because I've worked with them around the country. From County Councillor Kevin Bentley, you heard from him earlier on, to Baroness Teresa O'Neill in Bexley, to our elected mayor in Teesside, Ben Houcham. They have all been at the forefront of delivering services to local communities, giving pride and hope to the places they live and to the people they serve. My heart wept to see the loss of so many hard-working Conservative councillors and local leaders over the last 2 years. Thousands of dedicated public servants who we all know within our local associations, delivering Conservative values for their communities, now no longer able to do so. I promise you this, that under my leadership, we will once again become the largest party in local government. That's not all. We will campaign to hold the seats that we have, campaign to win back the seats that we have lost, and I will not stop at campaigning to get Conservative councillors elected. I know the incredible work that our Conservative Police and Crime Commissioners do. We have some here today, like Roger Hurst, Alison Hernandez, Rupert Matthews, Caroline Henry, David Lloyd, and Andrew Snowden, who is now one of our MPs. I've seen what they have done to recruit more police officers to fight crime and support the victims of crime. We lost too many of them in May's elections, and I'm going to campaign to get Conservatives back into those roles. And here in London, we will work tirelessly to get a Conservative mayor elected to our great city once more. I want to put to an end Sadiq Khan's high taxes, his soaring crime rates, his war on motorists, and the rotten governance that's taking place across our great capital city. And it is because we are the Conservative and Unionist Party that under my leadership, we will support colleagues in Wales and in Scotland to get them ready to fight the elections in the Senate and the Scottish Parliament in 2026. Now, I was in Scotland last week, And I cannot tell you how much damage the divisive and the corrupt nationalists have done to that proud nation. While they have obsessed over independence and camper vans, Scotland has suffered with failing educational standards in what was once a great system. Scotland has the highest rate of drug deaths in Europe, and Scotland has the highest tax levels than the rest of the United Kingdom. The people of Scotland deserve better, and we will offer them a brighter future. And in Wales, people have suffered for 25 years under Labour rule. A self-serving Labour government that Starmer has boasted will be the model that he wants to follow in England. With public services performing so poorly in Wales, with Welsh businesses battling government burdens, bureaucracy, and outright hostility to enterprise, and a self-serving Labour government only interested in spending £120 million of taxpayers' money, increasing the size of the Senate and giving Wales more politicians. I will work with our party in Wales to expose the failure of Labour. Now, to our members, wherever you are across our union, I say this: support me to be our next leader, and I will turn our party into a professional, competent election-winning machine. I'll make you proud again to wear our blue rosette and go out there and campaign for our great party. Now, I've spoken to our MPs and to our party members. Now I want to speak to the British people. In me, you have a leader who understands the challenges of our country, and I will guide you through them. I will never promise you what I can't deliver, and I will never tell you what I think you may want to hear because it sounds easy or simple to deliver. What I will offer you are credible and compelling plans for the future of our country, one which is anchored by our shared conservative and British values. That is why I will always fight for your freedoms: free speech, free enterprise, and the freedom to keep more of what you earn and to live your lives how you choose. That's why I will always champion innovation over regulation, technology over taxation when it comes to improving our energy security. And that's why I will always stand up for law and order and strong border controls. That's why I will always support people across Britain to have their say about the future directions of their community. And that is why I will always promote choice and opportunity over state control. In me, you have a leader who offers you experience and strength, and who has spent their life fighting and winning battles. You do not get to stand here in my shoes if you have not faced down adversity, dealt with setbacks, and got through some difficult times. You might even say that those experiences have given me a core of steel. And in me, you have a conservative leader, motivated by values and a lifetime of public service. For my record of public service did not begin in May 2010 when I was elected Member of Parliament for Witham, nor did it begin when I worked with William Hague to put the fire back in the belly of our party after 1997. It began more than 40 years ago, working in my parents' shop, serving customers on the shop floor, helping in a small family business at the heart of their local community, and being sent out on my bike by my father to deliver groceries and to check on regular customers who may not have been seen for a while. I am proud of the public service I gave 40 years ago, as I am of the public service I have given in one of the great offices of state. Public service is not just a phrase or a soundbite for me. It is ingrained in every fibre of my being, from working on the shop floor, to being a proud mother, to standing up and representing the part of Essex that I stand in, and to putting our national interests first in government. I will always give committed and dedicated service to our country. And under my leadership, the Conservative and Unionist Party will serve every part of the United Kingdom with professionalism. We will work with humility to earn back your trust. And we will be one united team, with one voice, promoting our shared values, serving our nation, and we will unite to win. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Well, you were just watching and listening to Dame Priti Patel launching her Tory leadership campaign. Quite a slick operation there, quite a confident performance, talking a lot about how important campaigning is, how important uniting the party is, the parliamentary party, the membership, the country, etc., etc. She wants to get the party back to its winning ways. Apparently, she's also got merchandise on sale, T-shirts, Priti for the job, Unite behind Priti, Unite to win, baseball caps too on offer for those who are interested. So that was Priti Patel launching her leadership campaign there. Now, you are watching Good Afternoon.